everyone, welcome to the stream. Faith Jesse joining you here on 11Alive 24/7, where we are following stories for you all across our backyard, the nation, and the world. Right now, we are monitoring the hearing for Colt Gray, the teen that has pled guilty to that horrific Appalachia High School shooting. We are monitoring that case right now. We know that they are in a break right now. As soon as they get back up and rolling, we'll bring that to you live. But we are continuing to follow stories across our backyard, including our weather. So let's bring in meteorologist Julie Martin, tracking everything for us this Tuesday. A little hot, a little sticky out there, but it is summer in Georgia.
Yeah, we have a weather impact alert for today. Our heat index, or our feels like temperatures, are going to be well into the triple digits. So it is going to be dangerous heat actually throughout the afternoon. So let's get you outside right now. We do have that impact alert. It is in full swing right now. Those feels like temps around 105 degrees. Need to hydrate, stay very cool. We have a heat advisory that goes until 8 o'clock this evening. Some of these values could get up around 109 degrees. So definitely going to be feeling it today into tomorrow. And then by Thursday, Friday, much cooler, drier air, not really cooler, but drier air comes through the area. And so that is going to make it feel a lot more comfortable out there. Right now over Truist, we're at 89, our dew point at 75, so that is very humid. That's what's making it so hot. 89 downtown, 90 in Marietta, 85 there in Gainesville. Our feels like temperatures, though, in Gainesville at 92, Covington feeling like 108, Dalton also feeling like 108. And if we take a look at the forecast track with those temperatures here, showing those triple digits through about 6 o'clock tonight, and then starting to pull back, but still staying exceptionally warm as we head into the evening, overnight, and into tomorrow. So we'll see if we get another heat advisory for tomorrow. Very possible. National Weather Service indicating that may happen. Taking a look at our dew points, you'll see there the 70s. That is oppressive. That's where we are today, tomorrow, pretty much there too. Then a cold front pushes through and we start to get much more comfortable air, drier air in, and that's going to make all the difference in terms of our feels like temperatures and those heat concerns. So for your Wednesday, the heat index still up there at 94, but then by Thursday, Friday, we're down into the 80s, and that goes for your Saturday. We'll be back up in the 90s, but the air temp will be in the 80s. Okay, we do have a slight risk of some severe weather today. Right now we're quiet on the satellite and radar, but we will have this cold front coming in, so some showers out ahead of it, especially in North Georgia tonight. This is a look at 9 o'clock. Our model's showing some of those showers and storms getting going and then dropping south. A lot of this, though, the models have kind of falling apart before it reaches the metro area. The primary threats with this would be damaging winds, heavy downpours, and lightning. We still have a level 1 threat in the metro, level 2 threat in northeast Georgia. And the storm threats, as I mentioned, strong winds, heavy rain, a very low threat of a tornado, low threat for hail. So that weather impact alert is for today only, kind of one and done. And then we stay hot, but not as hot as we wrap up the week. Another chance at some showers and storms coming in, though, over the weekend.
All right, Julie, thank you so much.
Sure.
Truly appreciate it. We know that it's going to be very, very hot, as you just saw. So all of you
take
watching,
it easy. Yeah.
we're talking dangerous heat. You want to get outside. End of summer, kids about to go back to school. So kids still want to be in the heat. So make sure you're doing all of your sunblock and all the things. So
Yeah, for
really
sure.
appreciate it. Julie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. We are continuing to monitor stories all across our backyard and the nation. Once again, if you're watching us and joining us right now, we are monitoring the situation out of Appalachia High School, out of Barrow County. Colt Gray, the teen who was accused of carrying out that mass shooting, now pleading guilty to that, is awaiting the continuation of that case. We're hearing from his attorneys as well as those on the prosecution right now because he has taken this plea deal. The question is, what will that sentencing be? So we're continuing to monitor that case out of Barrow County. They are on a break right now. As soon as they get back up live, we will be bringing that to you live. We do know that this is a case that has impacted so many families, and it's really hard to continuing watching it over and over and over. So if you need to talk to somebody, please do. We're here to do our duty to make sure that you are all informed of what is happening with this case. So we'll be bringing it to you here live on streaming as well as later editions of 11Alive News. Well, we do want to stay on top of stories coming out of our community, and one of those is back to school. We know, ooh, parents are like, yes, send those kids back. Some of them not so much, but we are excited. We know that our teachers, the staff, everybody getting so excited and ready. I mean, really never stops. And we have Clayton County in the building today talking about back to school. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. The interim Superintendent of Clayton County Schools.
Absolutely.
For those who are not familiar, introduce yourselves to the people.
Well, my name is Dr. Douglas Hendricks, Sr., and I am the interim superintendent of Clayton County Public Schools.
Yes, sir. Some new leadership coming in, parents, students, getting ready. We know, and shout out to all of the teachers, all of the educators, all of the principals, the staff. My God, what it takes to run a school every single day. We are so appreciative for all of you, and we know that parents are eager to get their kids back
Absolutely.
in. Kids may or may not be excited. Of course, they're excited to see their friends, but we are excited for education under there. For parents and teachers headed back, what is just top of mind for you right now? When does school start in Clayton County?
Yeah, well, school starts Monday, August the 3rd, so it's right around the corner.
Yes.
And I believe that parents and children are ready. I think children are just as eager to see their friends and their teachers as parents are as eager to give them to us so that we can take over the duty for the time period that belongs to schools. But we're excited. We've been preparing all summer, hundreds of employees, getting school buses, buildings, the lawns, the classrooms, the HVACs, the food, all of that prepared. Wonderful people in the central office getting plans that will produce the kind of results that we want our students, our own children to have, much less our students. And so as a county, Clayton County is ready and poised for the best start of the school year ever.
Not just ready, but ready for the best. That's what we like to hear,
That's
right?
right.
Making sure that our students have the best opportunities.
That's right.
What's anything different from the start of school this year compared to years past? Any challenges, hurdles we're facing?
Well, there'll always be challenges, but we see those as areas to capitalize on. We ended last school year on a high note. We had one of the largest graduation classes we ever had. We had historic graduation rates, not just for our regular ed students, but also students with disabilities. We see that we moved over 739 children out of our early intervention program. We increased our AP program by 51%.
Wow.
With historic numbers, over 800 students scoring 3s, 4s, and 5, which are qualifying scores on AP examinations. And we know how we did it, so that means we can repeat it. So we walk into this year with that same level of excitement. We have great partners with the Rollins Center. They are helping us with our science of reading in our early grades because we believe that justice for all children is children being able to read by first grade. And so we're moving in some positive directions. We have the United Way as a partner. $4.5 million is what they have invested into our cause. And so we're excited about where we're going. We're excited about our teachers. We're excited about our plans. This is going to be a great school year in Clayton County.
It's going to be a great year. And I love that you talked about having students being able to read in first grade, because as we know, by the time we get to third grade, that reading level is a big determination for the potential future. And
Absolutely.
I know that at least in Atlanta public schools, we talked a lot about that reading level. What does it look like in Clayton County schools, that focus to make sure that that third grade reading level is not just at where it needs to be, but above where it needs to be, and any other focuses that you all are looking at?
Yeah, well, literacy is the focus because that's foundational to all of our other learning. We're opening our early learning center this year. And so actually we have the ribbon cutting today at 5 o'clock, but it will take pre-K 3 students. That means 3-year-old students will be coming into our system for the first time. Our dedication to educating our community is such that we know that we don't get funding for 3-year-olds, but because making sure students can read is so foundational and it's a matter of equity, we're pulling them in early and educating them. We continue our work with the Atlanta Speech School and the Rollins Center. I don't know if you know this, but they're some of the foremost authorities on the science of reading in the country. And so they've been helping us with our kindergarten and first grade students. Now they're going to reach back to our pre-K 3, pre-K, first grade, kindergarten, and first grade, and do some of the work with our second grade students as well, so we can move everyone. For us, It's a commitment to put the best teachers in the earliest grades, because we know that when those students have the best teachers early, they're able to do better because their teachers are better. And it's just an overall commitment. We believe that we're 26 letters of the alphabet, 44 sounds, and a host of rules around those sounds away from being the Clayton County of our dreams, and we're working toward that effort.
Absolutely. Love to. That foundation is so important.
Very.
Because with a shaky foundation, the building will fall, right?
That's correct.
Can I ask about school safety? Because
Absolutely.
we know that this is something that, of course, is a concern for parents every single day when they send their kid back, or excuse me, when they send their kid to school,
Right.
they want them to come back safe.
Yes.
What is top of mind when it comes to safety concerns, especially, and I know Clayton County obviously has schools at every level. We're talking about this sentencing for
Yes.
Appalachia High School shooting was way out of Clayton County and Barrow County.
Sure.
But this is still a reminder of the unfortunate reality for some students. So when it comes to school safety, what's top of mind for you all this year?
Just keeping our students safe. You know, parents have an expectation, and it's probably the same expectation those of us who have children have. Even if you do not educate my child, I want them to come back the way that they came to you. And so we have metal detection in our secondary schools, that's middle and high. We have purchased metal detection for our elementary schools because every once in a while it's necessary. We have wanding. We have SROs in our middle schools. We have 2 SROs in our high schools. We have CSOs, which is basically a security officer at our elementary schools. And on the outside, we have security that rides around and monitors the school daily. We have crossing guards because that's another area of safety. We have a lot of children who are crossing intersections and have to get to school. So we have our crossing guards. But also, we're starting to look at things like cell phones. You know, there's a new ban that's coming. In fact, the law takes place fully next year. We've already been implementing that at the early grades, and although it's not official, we're transitioning our high school students by saying, hey, everyone, bell to bell, phones are away. And
that's something
acclimating.
are you testing that this year?
We are. Well,
Yeah.
we've done it full-fledged with our elementary and middle schools already, but this year high school, well, we've been doing it with high schools as well, but this year we put some teeth to it. Working with parents so that they also understand. That's one of the ways parents can help us. Let's collectively as adults say, no cell phones, because it's the law, but also because adults say so. Adults say so because we're saying this is the best thing for your education at this time. Let's put away the screen time and start to do some real deep diving into our educational experience and get away from some of the things that hinder us. We know that the overuse of cell phones has something to do with mental illness and a lot of other things. And so I think the state was right to say, hey, let's put away the cell phones and let's learn. And so we're asking our parents to help us. But we have multiple things in place. We have qualified, caring adults in every classroom. That's a matter of safety. And so we believe that we're going to have one of the safest years as well. And so we work towards it every day.
Thank you so much for that. As interim superintendent, what does the role look like for you? Like, what is in your mind taking in this role? And is this a role that you would like permanently?
That's a great question. I have worked in public education now 31 years. My history is that I came by means that are much different from some people. My first job was on the back of a trash truck, and I worked as a teacher, worked my way up. I was a CFO, CHRO, which is the Chief Human Resource Officer. I've held many jobs, principal, teacher, everything. My desire is to help. And so, be it God's will, then the responsibility will be what it needs to be. What I'll continue to do rather than think about that is I'll continue to do the work at a high level. Why? Because the children are still waiting. The children are still in need. The purpose is still there. And we understand, I understand greatly that education can change everything. Everything that we see negative can be changed. When children can read, they have greater empathy. When children can read, there's less war. When children can read, they can decipher a world and not need to look on TikTok and other things to see whether or not they fit in a world. They know they fit in a world because they've imagined a world that was in a book. And so children who can't travel can see things they've never seen before. So my job right now is providing the vision for 7,500 employees and 50,000 students and their families to make sure that Clayton County has the highest level of education it can, and that children are able to realize their dreams, and that legacies will be affected that I won't live long enough to see. So I'm savoring the moment. I'm sure our Board of Education will do the thing that's necessary, and I'll continue to work with our team to make sure that we have a great school district.
So what I'm hearing is that you are focused on this year, but you would welcome the opportunity to serve full time.
It's been my life's work, so yes.
Thank you so much for your
Yeah.
answer. You had mentioned a word to parents in regards to cell phones.
Yes.
I'd like you to take the next minute for a message to parents on anything else, a message to them
Sure.
as we prepare to, as you all prepare to
Sure.
welcome their students and as they prepare to send their kids to school.
I know that coming to school in the beginning of the school year means different things to different parents. For elementary parents, there's a lot of fear because you're passing your baby on to someone else. For students at the secondary level, for some of their parents, it's just a concern of whether or not you'll be influenced in negative ways, or will you be seen, will you be heard. What I want the parents of Clayton County to know is that we're going to make every effort not to see all students, because when we say all, some students fall through the crack. We're going to see every student because every student has a face. This is not a spectator sport. You can't sit on the sideline and expect that your child just be educated. You've got to get in the game. What does that mean? I know that everyone can't come to the school. Everyone can't always be involved in terms of their presence, but be present at home. Shake a book bag. Ask the child who their friends are. Take away the phone at home sometimes too. Make sure they're doing their homework. Meet the teacher that will spend the next 180 days with your child, right? Call the school when necessary. When there's an issue, approach the school with humanity and expect that you be given that same humanity back. I think if every parent will commit to just that, and for the parents who have the younger kids, 26 letters of the alphabet, go through those. To the best of your ability, go through the sounds. If you need us to help with that, we can help with that. But if you'll do just those things, you will put us all in a better position to be successful. We want that partnership, so we welcome it. Be our partners would be my message to parents.
And that's your message to parents. Now I want you to do the same thing on the other side, your teachers, your staff, everybody who's already been working.
Yeah.
It seems like they probably haven't really taken a break, maybe one little vacation.
Probably one little vacation. We have many teachers who we just left. They were training vigorously, getting ready, and they're so excited. What I would say to every teacher is that every child matters, right? Regardless of their economic status, regardless of a disability or non-disability, regardless of their gender, regardless of their race, religion, or otherwise, every child matters. And so what I would ask of every teacher is every day, not be perfect, but be consistent and consistently good. What we call Tier 1 instruction is the instruction that should teach every child at what we call the proficient level, where a child can make it in the rest of their life and through society. Be prepared to do that for every child every day. Commit to that. Commit to seeing every child. Commit to addressing all the issues you can. Commit to having humanity towards every child. Sometimes we see children and forget they're children for a reason, and they need adults in their life for a reason. Don't judge them. Help them. As we discipline them, do it not as a matter of revenge, but a matter of challenging and training them to be better than they were in that moment. That moment is not their life. I would challenge every educator, not just teachers, but everybody that comes in contact with children, to see them. Think about your child. Think about what other children go through, and then have the level of empathy that allows you to put your child on another person's child, and then their face, and then and think what you would want for your child. If you can do that, teachers, educators, custodians, everybody who educates, then we can have a better school system. We can have a better world. And so I think Clayton County is poised to be a lighthouse for school districts, not just in the metro area, but across the country. It all starts with decency.
It does. And those interactions, each of those interactions, that can be a lasting impact for a student.
Absolutely.
You ask kids, who's your favorite teacher? Or who did you hate?
Yeah.
They'll remember it.
Yeah.
Last thought to the Clayton County community as you
Yeah.
all get ready to go to school.
We spent a lot of time in the community just recently canvassing, walking around, because we understand this. Before you can get to day one readiness, sometimes you have to tackle the reality that belongs to parents and their children at this point. For some people, it's hunger. For some people, it's not having clothing. For some people, it's a light bill is due. So we walked around to make sure they understand that their school district is here to support them, and we have resources so we could close the gap between their reality and readiness. And now it's time for us all to get in the game. It's time for the parents to do their role. It's time for the schools to do their role. It's time for children to do their role. It's time for our business partners and stakeholders who support education to do their piece. And when we walk in what we call a coherent structure, we get off Spaghetti Junction, everybody's going everywhere, and get on 75 North together, we can achieve anything. So I would say to parents, I would say to stakeholders outside of the school district, let's go. Let's walk together, let's be partners, and let's figure this out. The kids are still waiting.
Let's go.
Let's go.
It's time.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Douglas Hendricks, Senior Interim Superintendent of Clayton County Public Schools. We know that you all are ready and going to give the kids the best school year, in your words, this year. So
The children eat first.
the children eat first, and if they eat, if they don't eat, we don't eat.
That's
so
right.
If they eat, we all eat. That's right.
That's right.
Thank you so much for coming
Thank
on. We
you.
truly appreciate it. We'll be posting this full interview to 11alive.com along with resources for back to school, because it'll be here sooner than you know it. Faith Jesse joining you. Let's take a quick break. We'll see you on the other side. Faith Jesse joining you here on the 11 Alive 24/7 stream. We are continuing to monitor the case out of Barrow County. Colt Gray pleading guilty to that horrific shooting at Appalachia High School. They have just returned from a break. We want to listen in to the case right now.
Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear from the testimony about you give today will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please be seated and introduce yourself to the court.
Colt's grandmother taking the stand right now. Let's listen in.
My name is Deborah Polhemus,
And would you please spell your last name?
Polhamus.
What relationship are you to Colt Gray?
I'm Colt's grandmother, maternal grandmother.
From the time that Colt was born, have you been involved in his life?
From the day he came out. Yeah.
And how much have you had access to him over the past several years? It was you. Describe that.
They rarely visited me except during the pandemic. They stayed with me a lot then. But I was up there every month for their life, all their life.
Where were you living at that time?
I was living in Fitzgerald, Georgia.
So where is that?
It's about 4 hours south of here.
Okay. Would you drive up for those 4 hours to see him when you came?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
How often would you say during the early days of his life that you were able to drive up?
How often?
Yes.
I tried to come every month, sometimes 6 weeks. I was working, and I still had one in college, and I was traveling a lot with her, but I was usually up here once a month.
What county were they living in when, say, he was 1 to 5 years old?
Statham.
And where is Statham in relationship to Fitzgerald?
Statham is about 4 hours. It's just 10 miles from Winder.
Okay. And during those visits, would you stay in the home, or would you get a motel?
No, I stayed in the home.
How long would you stay with each visit?
Usually the weekend. I drove up on Friday after school and drive home Sunday evening.
And say after school, what was your profession?
I was educator, special education educator.
Did you have anyone in your family that was a medical person?
I did.
Who was that?
Well, my sister was a doctor. She died when Colt was young, and I had several aunts and uncles that were nurses and doctors.
Okay. Did you ever get involved in any of what they did, or did they teach you anything just on the side, like sometimes kids learn from their parents?
Not really. Most of what I learned studying. I worked with emotionally disturbed children for the last 15 or 18 years, and went back to school several times.
Were you certified in special education?
Yes.
When Colt was young, did you notice anything that in his development that gave you some concern?
Well, he was slow to walk. He was 18 months old when he finally started walking, and that I think was because his mom was in the hospital having Jenny, and I stayed with him and we walked all day because he was ready. He just didn't get the chance. But I noticed that he was restless. He was impulsive. He when he got excited, he would jump up and down and wave his arms. And but that was it.
Was he exposed to daycare in those days?
Yes.
Do you know anything about his interaction in the daycare?
Well, the first daycare he was in was when he was very young. And then Marcy took him out at 6 months because Coley lost his job and Marcy was working and they couldn't afford daycare. I offered to pay for it, but Marcy said no. If Coley was going to be at home, he could take care of him. So he was with him for, I think, maybe 4 to 6 months. And then they put him in the daycare center that was next to the school. I think it was called Helping Hands.
And how old was Colt at that time?
Colt was 2.5 by then, maybe. And that's where he was until he started school.
And when he started school, do you remember which school system he started in?
He was in Statham, in Clark County.
How long was he in that school system?
He was in Statham until the 4th grade, same school.
Did you ever have any contact with his teachers at school?
I did not a lot. When he was in pre-K, they did a developmental profile on all the children, and Colt scored really well on everything but social emotional. So they decided to do what they call a 504, and it's a program that leads into or out of special education. It was for his behavior and his impulsivity. And if he got concentrated help and improved, then he would staff out, and if not, he would staff into special ed. And he received those services at the elementary, which was just across the parking lot. And then in kindergarten, he stayed in under the 504. And they staffed him out at the end of first grade because he was doing well. You know, he still had an incidents once in a while, but his grades were well. He was attending, and things just seemed to settle down.
How long did he stay in the school system in Statham?
He was in Statham through the 4th grade.
During that time, how was his parents? Were they having issues with drugs, or was it just financial?
Well, they always had issues. They were doing a lot of drinking at that time. And then they got way behind on bills. Coley bought a new truck, and he bought a camper, and he bought a fancy fishing boat, and they got way behind, and they had to sell the farm. And that was the real beginning of the downfall.
And how old was Colt when that happened?
He was 4th grade.
So 4th grade, would that be 8 or 9? Okay.
Yeah.
And did you notice at that time any impacts on Colt when that happened?
Well, he was miserable. I mean, they all were, you know. They got yanked out of their school. They got yanked out of their home, the only place they'd ever lived. And they moved to Gainesville and rented a house. And Coley was working. Marcy wasn't. Marcy was deteriorating, and they didn't go to school for a long time. And then she finally got him enrolled, and Colt and Jenny both seemed to really like their school there. But they were only there for a few months. They got evicted, and then they went to Jefferson, and they lived there for a while, and things were about the same. I think by that time Marcy had started on some drugs, and they got evicted from that house, and then the pandemic hit, and they came to Fitzgerald.
And Colt would have been about 10 years old during the pandemic? When they were down in Fitzgerald, did you notice anything about Colt and his relationship with his parents?
Well, Marcy got a job. Colt and Jenny stayed with me most of the time because I was doing school with them. Jenny spent the night a lot. Colt would go home. They moved all of their stuff into a 1,500 square foot house, and you couldn't walk in the front door, and it was all turned upside down. And they were just miserable. I mean, you know, they didn't have anywhere to play. They couldn't nowhere to sit down and watch TV. So they stayed with me most of the time.
And how was Colt's social interaction at that time?
He didn't have any. You know, during the pandemic, they were staying with me. I took them swimming and things like that, but they didn't really have any contact with other kids. I got them in school, and I would take them, well, in the beginning, Coley would take them. Coley didn't work. He never did get a job during that time, and so he would take them to school and pick them up. We got Colt signed up for football, and he played football and had a really good time doing that. And Jenny was playing soccer. And then after DFACS got involved, Coley was not actually named on the initial report. It was just Marcy. So Coley got mad and just decided he was going to move them back up to Atlanta, because he didn't want to have to deal with DFACS. So that, and I'm incorrect. They moved to my house before Jefferson, because when they moved back up, that was when they moved to Jefferson.
And was that the 2021 case we heard about earlier today?
Is that what?
The 2021 case that we heard about earlier today?
Yeah.
Well, what do you remember about Colt and the incidents around that case?
Well, we reported them to DFACS because my other daughter did. I couldn't bring myself to do it. But she reported them to DFACS because they were just completely dysfunctional. Chloe was spending all day in the bed. Marcy was trying to drive and work, and she was on stuff, and he was on stuff. And I'd go over, and the kids didn't have anything to eat. And Marcy got mad one day and slapped Colt for a couple of times. And so we just decided to report them and see if we couldn't get some help. We couldn't get anything done. And DFACS was involved for several months, and then Coley packed them up and moved them back to Jefferson.
And at that time, was there any discussion about you possibly becoming a guardian for the kids?
No, Coley wouldn't talk about it. I had talked to Marcy several times about taking the kids, or particularly Colt, because Colt was the one who seemed to be having the most difficulty living in the house with his daddy and his mother. And she said that Coley would never let me have him, and that there was no point even trying. That we didn't have enough proof to convince the courts that he was being emotionally, physically, mentally abused, neglected, whatever. So, and she said that she was afraid that if I tried to take him, he would kill him, or her, or me, or somebody. So they moved up to Jefferson.
Did you see any of the abuse between Coley and Colt that you were describing?
No, Colt never shared much of it with me. I think he knew I would worry, so he never said much. I did see, there was one incident when they were living in Jefferson where Colt and Coley were arguing, and I told Colt to go to his room. I said, just go to your room, shut the door. And the next thing I knew, Coley had gone up there and gone in the room and was yelling and screaming at him. So Marcy went up there and stopped it, but I never really saw him hit Colt. Little Coley used to tell me about it all the time, but I never saw it.
And during that part of the DFACS case that was still down in Fitzgerald, did you have any discussions with the DFACS workers about potential future plans for the family?
Well, we had talked about it. They had actually talked about, they were actually going to drop the case. They had decided, Marcy had been clean for a year, so they decided they would drop the case. Wait, I'm getting mixed up. That's the second time. I really didn't talk to them the first time much. Marcy was really careful about keeping me out of it a lot of times, and so I didn't talk to the DFACS worker then. I did talk to the DFACS worker when Marcy moved back down with Jenny and Colt the second time, but that first time I did not.
And still focusing on that first time, how was Colt reacting? What kinds of things was he doing that might have caused you concern?
Well, he wasn't really doing anything except staying in his room a lot, and that was because there was nowhere else to go. But he wasn't on the computer all the time at that time. He would draw, he would read, he'd go with me. We'd go to the grocery store and go to my house, and we really didn't have any contact with anybody because of the pandemic.
How was his ability to make friends at that time?
His ability?
Yeah.
I don't know. He never got the opportunity. When he started school, he met kids, but he didn't really have any. When he was playing football, he became buddy with some of the kids, but after football, that was it.
After the COVID period and during this DFACS case, do you know what time range it was they started going back to school physically?
They started going back to school, let me think, let me get this straight. When they went to, they were in school in Fitzgerald after the pandemic was over. We got them enrolled there, and then Coley left and took them up there to Jefferson. And it was a while in Jefferson before Marcy got them enrolled in school.
When they went to Jefferson, was it in the middle of the school year?
I wish I had my notes with me. Yeah, it was, I think, January or February. Coley decided to take them out, I think in December, snatch them out and take them up there.
So do you know how long Colt was out of school in Jefferson after they were out, before he got back in?
I'm trying to think, that would have been the 7th grade. And he started them in school, Marcy started them in school not long after they got up there. And then they got evicted from Jefferson, and they moved to another area in Jefferson, another house, which put them on the other side of the county, so they had to start on a new school again. And they were there, I think they finished out the year there. And then in the 8th grade, that was when Cole didn't go to school. I went and got Marcy and the other two and made them come to Fitzgerald, because I couldn't keep myself spread that thin. And Colt chose to stay with his dad, and he didn't go to school at all that year.
And so during his 8th grade year, he was solely with his father?
There was a time that he came down, I think in the summer, but I don't think he came down during the school year.
And how often were you able to go back and forth with the kids down living with you? How often were you able to go back?
It was I went very few times because Marcy was, by that time, she was pretty strung out, and I had Coley and Jenny, and I was taking them to school, picking them up, feeding them, and trying to keep up with her. And so I didn't get up there very much. We didn't even talk a lot.
During the time they were in Fitzgerald, was Marcy still having the drinking and drug problems?
Yeah.
Did DFACS get involved again down there?
Yes, they did, and that was when I talked to the DFACS worker, and she got off of them, and then she went for a while without taking any and was passing all the tests, and but she never did really quit. Not then. She did at one point, but she had started back by then.
Was that the time that Colin took all the kids again and moved back up because DFACS gave him custody?
Yeah, that was when the incident happened with Marcy and me. And I called DFACS. Marcy told me that DFACS had decided to drop her case because she had been a year drug-free. And I called the DFACS worker and told her that Charlie and I were going to Virginia for a week, and that the kids were going to be staying with their mom, and that I needed to know if they would stop by and do a checkup just for me. And they said sure, and of course they stopped by, and she tested positive for 3 or 4 different things. And I was still in Virginia, so that was when they called Coley. They had to leave her with somebody, and they couldn't leave her with me, so they called Coley, and he came and got them.
And just to clarify for the court, who is Charlie?
Charlie's my husband.
Okay. And all this time the kids are back and forth in your home, Charlie's there too? How much conversation or interaction did you have with Colt during the time the kids were down there and he was up with his dad?
Not a lot. Not a lot. I went up, I think, maybe once or twice, and we talked on the phone some. But Coley was real good about changing his, I shouldn't say that. But little Coley, the last time I was up there visiting when the kids were with their daddy, little Coley kept begging me to stay. And I told him, I said, I'll come back. I'll be back in a week or two. And he said, Mammy, my daddy's always so much nicer to Colt when you're here. And I sat down with him and I said, well, what does your daddy do? And he's always yelling at Colt, and he's always fighting with him, and he hits him, and you know, that was out of the innocent mouth of a child. Little Coley was 8 at that time. So it was still going on, but I never saw it. You know, Coley was always hunky-dory. Hey, Mamu, come on in. But apparently it wasn't that way all the time.
So when the other two children were going back then with Colin, was he up in Jefferson County area still? I mean, Jackson County area?
When the kids went up there?
Yes.
No, he was, he and Colt had moved to Bethlehem. While I had Marcy and the kids, Coley told me that he wanted to try to find a place that was less expensive because he only had his income. And so he found the house on Harrison Mill Road in Winder, and they moved there. And when the kids came up, that's where they all stayed.
And when they moved to Bethlehem, did that cause a disruption for Colt's school?
It caused a disruption for Colt because he made the comment to me that he loved Jenny and Coley, but it was always so much more chaotic when they were there. You know, apparently he and his dad had kind of settled into a groove, and he was afraid it was going to get turned upside down. But by that time, Colt was spending a lot of time on his computer, obviously, and I just didn't realize it. But you know, when he come out of his room and we'd sit and talk, it was just like Colt, you know, in the beginning.
What, if anything, did you notice, or what event happened that made you start worrying about Colt specifically with his development and mental health?
Well, the most recent of things and the most concerning was when his mother left rehab. They had gotten into a groove, and Coley was really trying. He was doing the best he could at that time for the first time. But Marcy left rehab and went to Winder.
And approximately what year range is this?
I'm sorry, what?
What year, what time frame is this?
This was in June, July, before the shooting.
Okay.
And
A few months before the shooting?
yeah,
Okay.
and she, the day that she got there, I got a call from Jenny, and she said, Mammy, my mama's here. I said, no, I just talked to your mom last night. She's still in rehab. No, she's here. I said, well, let me call you Daddy. And I hung up, and before I could call Coley, Colt called me. Mammy, did you know my mama's up here? I said, no, I didn't until Jenny just called me and told me. So let me call Coley and find out what's going on. Well, from that point on, it just slowly deteriorated.
And what kinds of behaviors was Colt exhibiting that caused you concern?
He was much more anxious, much more verbally abusive and hostile. Even to me, if you were in here and heard all the conversations when in his dad's trial, he had never talked to me like that. And that was an indication to me that he was really, really struggling.
Did you try to suggest anything for Colin or Marcy?
I talked to him about getting some help for him, getting some therapy or some kind of treatment, and I always got met with the same thing. We'll call the doctor. We'll call somebody. We got to wait for the insurance to kick in. And I told him, I said, I'll pay for it. Just get him some help, you know.
As a special ed teacher, did you have any concerns about specific issues with Colt or just wanting to find out what's going on?
Well, the thing I was most concerned with in those last weeks was that he just got highly, highly agitated and impulsive. And he began having, the last couple of weeks when I was around him, he was having irrational thoughts. And he was almost to a point of not making sense. Sometimes when he would talk, just erratic.
What did you know about the gun that Colt had?
I knew that his daddy bought it for him for Christmas. Cole told me that he got it because Colt seemed interested and he really wanted to find something that they could do together. From the time Colt was little, Coley talked about taking him hunting, Of course, he bought the gun and they went hunting once. That was kind of the way things happened. But I didn't know that much about the gun itself. I knew it was an AR something, but that didn't mean anything to me. I knew it wasn't a handgun.
Did you ever see it directly in Colt's possession?
I did. He came in the kitchen and showed it to me when I got up there at Christmas. And then once when I was in his bedroom, he had it in there and he showed it to me and talked about how you load it and how you shoot it.
Did that cause you any concern that he had the gun in his bedroom?
Honestly, it didn't at first because my daughter had BB guns and she kept them in her room. I mean, we never had real guns, but Coley kept guns all over the house until Marcy sold them all. When they lived at the farm, he probably had 20 or 30 guns. And some of them were locked up, but most of them were just sitting in the corners. My daughter always told me it's a miracle I didn't get run over by a train. I'm so oblivious to things, but Colt didn't walk around with it all the time. It was just in the corner of his room, and I just honestly didn't think anything about it.
And then in the June event that you were referring to in 2024, did anything come up that made you concerned that he had access to a weapon based on his increasing aggression and anxiety?
No, I asked him one day if he kept it in there all the time, and he said some of the time, and then he told me that he had asked his dad to put it up for him. And then the last time I was up there, he came in and said, I told my dad I wanted him to lock my gun up. This was when I fell and broke my hand the week before the shooting. And I just figured that Coley did.
And did Colt's behaviors ever rise to such an extent that you attempted to get some kind of appointments in place for them to...
Yeah.
No.
Colt had a really bad panic attack at school. And the counselor called his dad, and his dad told him he couldn't come and get him. He was at work. So she called me and asked me if I would just talk to him. So I did, and calmed him down some. And I told him, I said, even if I leave right now, I can't be up there before school's out. You're going to have to stay there. So just stay in the counselor's office and sit down and do some deep breathing, and I'll be up there in the morning. I'll come up in the morning. So I got in the car the next morning and drove up there. He called me when he got home from school to let me know he made it home okay on the bus. And I went up the next morning, and Colt was at home. And I asked him how he was feeling. He said he was feeling better. And I told him that I was going to the school, and I went to the school to meet with the counselor. And I told him, I said, I don't have an appointment, but I really, really need to speak with a counselor. So she did see me, and we talked about what my concerns were, that I just had this feeling that Colt was going down a rabbit hole or something. And she said that they had just started using a certified therapist with some of the students, and that if I could get Coley to fill out the paperwork, she could start seeing Colt. So she emailed the paperwork to Coley, and he did fill it out and emailed it back. That was on Wednesday. No, that was Thursday. And she told me that she would be at the school the next Thursday, and she could see him then. So then I left there and called the behavioral center in Athens, and I told him what the situation was, that I was very concerned that Colt was just really, really struggling, and wanted to know what I needed to do to get him in. And she said that we could just walk in, fill out all the paperwork, and they would keep him. And they would keep him for several days if they needed to find out what was going on. And I asked her about insurance. I said, if he doesn't have insurance, can I pay for it? And she said, are you his parent? And I said, no. And she said, well, if you're not his parent, we can't take him. We have to have a parent. And I said, well, I don't know if I can get his dad to bring him. He's not real crazy about getting him to somewhere. And she said, well, if you bring him on Saturday, we don't have very many patients on Saturday, and most people don't even know we're open. We'll be ready, and you can bring him and fill out the stuff. So that was the plan. We were going to take him Saturday. Well, when I left the school, I fell and broke all of the fingers in this hand, and I went to the emergency room, and the doctor put a bandage on it and told me that I needed to see the orthopedist as soon as possible. So I told Coley that I was going to go home and see my daughter called and made me an appointment for the very next morning, that I was going to go down and let the orthopedist see my hand and see what needed to be done, and then I would come back. And I asked him if he was going to take Colt, and he said, yeah. Well, then Marcy told me she would go up and they would take him together. So I came home, went back to Fitzgerald, met with the doctor Friday, and Saturday morning Marcy was still at the house, and I asked her, I went by there, she was staying at my mom's house by then, and she said that she and Coley had gotten into a big argument and he wasn't going to meet her to take Colt to the doctor. So we didn't go, and of course you know the rest of it.
So, and what week was that you broke your hand and then you set up this?
That was the last week of August. It was the week before the shooting.
So that appointment would have been on the Saturday before September 4th. And then, from what you just said, they never made the appointment.
Well, I actually made the appointment. They just didn't go.
They didn't go.
Yeah.
And did Colin take any other steps between that day and September 4th?
I called 2 or 3 times to find out how things were going, and he said, oh, things are good. Colt's been fine. Colt didn't have a phone by that time, so no, he did. But I called him and he didn't answer. And then
When did you first find out about the shooting?
about the shooting,
Yes.
I was at the house, and Marcy was over there, and Coley called, and he called Marcy. Marcy didn't answer the phone, so he called me and he said, I need to talk to Marcy. I said, she's right here. So I handed her the phone, and he read the text message that Colt had sent, and Marcy said, you need to get in your car and you need to leave right now and go to the school. And she called the school and talked to the counselor. and told the counselor that they had just gotten a text message. She had by this time gotten one too, and that she was terrified that something was happening and that they needed to go find Colt. So
Did you drive up to,
we did. We left just a little while after that.
and when you got to Winder, is that when you first spoke with Inspector Smith?
With who?
Inspector Smith?
No, I didn't speak with him then. We went up, and it was like crazy. So I told Marcy, I said, I'm going to take Coley and Jenny back to Fitzgerald. There's nothing that they can do here. I want them in this. So when I got Coley, and when I went to get Jenny, she said she didn't want to go, that she wanted to stay there with her daddy. So I put Coley in the car, and we headed back to Fitzgerald. And we had just gotten to Fitzgerald and gotten him to sleep when DFAX called, when the sheriff called and said we had to come back. That DFAX was taking the kids, and I needed to bring him back. So I got him in the car and turned around and drove back to Winder to take him. And it was sometime that next day, I think, that I talked to the investigator at the sheriff's office.
And that was when, is that when DFAX took the children into care?
They already had Jenny. They had taken Jenny when Coley went in to do his interview, and they took Colt. They were waiting for me. I got back up there about 3 o'clock in the morning, and they were waiting for me at the sheriff's office.
Now, when you were interviewing with Inspector Smith, did you give him any of your thoughts as to why this happened?
I honestly can't remember, but I'm sure it had something to do with his mom and dad. By that time, my brain was so fried. I honestly don't remember a lot of what we talked about in that interview.
Had it been your desire for Colt to get mental health treatment? Did you want him to have mental health treatment?
Absolutely.
In your capacity as a teacher, did you find that to be important?
Yes, absolutely.
At this point, nothing we can do to change the truth. But given your experience and you're living with Colt, do you feel like long-term, if he gets treatment, he could be a productive person?
Absolutely. I know that's hard for a lot of people to believe, but the Colt that I knew and the Colt that I know now is not the Colt that did all of this. His mind was so distorted and just discorded that he had convinced himself that this was the way for him to go because he could be somebody. All he ever wanted was to have a friend. All he ever wanted was to be included and loved. I found a note in his room. I found this before the sheriffs got there. We went to the house after it was all over, and I had taken Coley. And I told Marcy, I said, I'd like to go and maybe get a few of the pictures and things. I don't know what we will have access to. And then I found a note in he had a little book that he kept on the fireplace that he made notes in. And there was a new one that was in there, and it said, why can't somebody just love me? And that's the way Colt felt.
You still have contact with him now, right?
Every week.
You visited him, in person?
Every week.
You had phone calls with him? How has he changed from the time he was first incarcerated to now?
From when?
The time he was first incarcerated?
He's so much better. Colt was in desperate need of routine. structure. He never had it, ever, except at my house. The first time we ate dinner in the pandemic, he said, "Mama, can we please eat at the table?" We never eat together at our house. That was all he ever wanted, and now he's got structure. And he's on medication, and it's helping him sleep. I called Dr. Friedman one day while he was at his first facility. Colt was still talking about hearing voices. And I said, "Well, do you know which voices you're hearing?" He said, "It's mostly my daddy." And I called Dr. Friedman and I said, "Colt has been tormented by his parents and his daddy all his life. I don't want him tormented the rest of his life. You need to do something to help him with these voices." And he did. He put him on medication and it really helped. And now they put him on something to help him sleep, and he's thriving. He's getting a lot of therapy at the new facility, and he's got a little more space, and he's more like the Colt that I saw growing up than he has been in 7 years.
Is he active in school? Education program? Has he listed to you some of the things that he wants to do at this facility?
Well, not necessarily at this one, because he won't be here that much longer, but when he gets moved to a long-term facility, first thing he wants to do is go back to school. He wants to go to school and study. He's been doing a lot of reading, and he's starting to work on his GED. And he's been we've been talking a lot about mediation. The group that he's with, sometimes kids will get into arguments. And one day he told me that two of the kids were arguing, and he said, "I just kind of got between them and tried to talk them down." And I said, "Well, that's called mediation. Maybe that's where you need to look. You could become a mediator as much as you needed help. Now you can give it to somebody else."
Have you been in contact with the administrative folks at the YDCs?
Yes.
And have any of them indicated to you that he has behavior issues that disrupt other or towards other people?
The first facility, the only thing I heard was when they shared with me that he just was really restless and seemed agitated some. The therapist that he had there was really good at working with him, but he left, and then when they started him on medicine, he got even better. I actually had a conversation with one of the counselors from his new facility the other day. He called just to check in, and he said that Colt was doing really well, that he's doing well in school. He abides by the rules, and that's all he ever needed was to know, this is what you need to do, and he'd do it, but...
This court is going to make a decision on what to do next. Do you have a request of the court as to what you would like for them to decide?
Well, obviously, Colt pled guilty because he did it. There's no denying that. He's accepted that responsibility. We've talked at length about remorse, how bad he feels about it, and how he wishes he could change things, but he can't. I would like, obviously, as his grandmother, and knowing what a great person he was before the trauma and since, I'd like to see him have a chance at some point to prove himself, to mediate, to do something productive. And I told him, I said, if you don't get out of prison, you can do it there. But if you do, you need to make sure you're ready to shine and show people that you are worthy. Seek forgiveness and go on.
Thank you. That's all I have, Judge.
Cross.
Okay, so Debbie, I'm a little confused. What time did you get to Winder on September 4th?
What time did I get what?
To Winder on September 4th of 2024?
Oh, it was after lunch.
So you left at like 10 o'clock to drive up here. No earlier than 2, right?
No, it couldn't be earlier than that because, you mean on the day of the
On the
shooting?
day of the shooting?
Okay, no, we didn't leave until probably lunchtime, got up here around 4.
Okay. And you're saying you got there before law enforcement arrived at his house?
No, they were all over the place.
Okay.
No, it was the next day that we went over there, after we had brought Coley and them back. And we went to the house because we had a key. I had a key because I was in and out all the time.
Earlier you testified that you found the note before law enforcement went.
No, I'm sorry. No, it was the next day. I wanted to go by there. I had taken some of, over the years, I had collected things of their lives that I didn't want to disappear. You know, pictures, drawings that they had done, toys, Christmas ornaments. And when they moved in with their daddy and things settled, I took a lot of that up there to them because I knew in all the moves that they went through, things got thrown away, and I didn't want everything to get thrown away. So when we took Coley and did DFACS, we had gotten a hotel room, and the next day before we left to go home, I told Marcy I wanted to ride by and see about getting some of that stuff. I said, because I didn't know what was going to happen to the stuff in the house. I figured that we would at some point in time have to pack everything up if Coley wound up going to prison, but I didn't know. So that was when I found the note.
And where was this note?
It was on the fireplace.
The fireplace that law enforcement went over. They went over that entire house with a fine-tooth comb for a day. And you're saying law enforcement didn't find this note that you did.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Where is the note? Did you give it to law enforcement?
No, it's at my house.
You didn't think that would be important to give to your attorney or his attorney?
Well, no, I mean, you know, I could bring it back to you if you want it.
No,
But-
I just would have assumed you would have brought it since.
Well, it wasn't something that I intended to bring up because I just figured it was going to be question answer. What did you do? What did you not do? But since I got into the story form and I found that note, you know, I mean,
Okay.
I guess that's just one more mistake I made in the whole situation. I didn't think it was something that mattered to anybody but me.
Well, you're here asking for the judge to give your grandson some remorse, or not remorse, but give him the benefit of the doubt and give him a chance to get out. And you want to present evidence to this court about why you think he should get out, and you obviously thought that was important.
I did think it was important, but not about him getting out. It was just important to me because that's the way he'd always felt. Nobody loves me. Why can't somebody love me?
And you've paid for his defense attorney, correct?
I did.
And you've paid for his psychologist, correct?
I did.
And you believe his parents failed him, right?
Yes.
You believe part of the reason we're here today is because Marcy and Colin were terrible parents, right?
I wouldn't call them terrible, but they're pretty close.
Okay.
I mean, that might not be the word I'd use, but
And
yeah.
you want to make sure that you can do everything you can to give Cole a chance today. Because you believe you also made mistakes, right?
Because what?
You believe you also made mistakes in this whole situation, right?
Well, I'm probably the most guilty of all in this situation because I was the one who could have done something and didn't. Because I was vulnerable enough to listen to my daughter say, you can't take my son, my husband won't let you.
But at the end of the day, Colt is also responsible for
Absolutely.
his actions, right?
Absolutely.
And you've been in here this whole time. during the sentencing. You've listened to everything that the state has presented, correct? And one of the things that we presented was a jail phone call between Colt and Marcy, and you were present for that on December 5th.
Most of the calls that they took, I wasn't even in the room. Marcy was staying with us at that time.
Marcy was staying with y'all, and she would talk to Colt. You would also drive her up to see Colt, right? Because she didn't have a license at that time. And on one of these calls from December 5th of 2024, you're in the room when they're talking about watching documentaries of mass shooters, correct? And Colt actually wanted you to watch some documentaries. And you did. And he wanted to know if you saw some similarities between him and James Holmes, right? Okay. And you watched it, and you said you saw some, but not a ton, right?
Yeah.
And you did that because he wanted you to watch it, right?
Well, he asked me to watch them, but the main reason I watched them was because I wanted to see what it was about the shootings that was so intriguing to him.
And so this is 3 months after the shooting,
Yeah.
after he committed his own mass shooting, and he's still watching documentaries, and you're watching them for him.
No, I wasn't watching it for him, I was watching it for me.
But you watched it because he asked you.
I did, yeah.
And on that jail call, we don't hear you say, stop watching these, what are you doing, right? You do it. You don't call his counselor, you don't call DFACS and say, hey, Colt's still watching documentaries, he needs to get some help, right? You didn't do any of that?
No.
Okay.
But I didn't realize he was still watching them. I thought they were documentaries he had watched before. I didn't know that he had access to any. Once he went to YDC, he didn't have access to anything.
But you know he's still talking about it and
Yeah.
he's still interested in it.
Yeah.
And you actually watched it, like you just said, because you wanted to see why he's so interested in these things.
Asked and answered.
And you do stuff for Colt because you don't want him to get mad at you, right? You want to placate him.
I want to what?
Placate him. You want to do what he says so he doesn't get mad at you.
No. I tried to help Colt because nobody else was helping him. He got mad at me when he was 3 years old, but that was okay.
And kind of as you were leading up, as we're getting closer to the shooting back in August and September, he was getting mad at you a lot.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there were lots of red flags that were popping up everywhere. He's got a gun in his room. He's interested in mass shooters, which everybody knew about, right? He actually called you and asked you if you would still love him if he did something terrible. You specifically told Colin you need to get him treatment, right? And he's having anxiety attacks, right? But you never thought that he would ever do something like this, right? And you admitted, you said your daughter calls you oblivious. You're kind of oblivious to things, right? And you're oblivious to Colt's red flags, essentially, right? And you were in here listening to all those phone calls where Colt and your daughter are talking about what a popular mass shooter he is.
Yeah.
And that was really hard for you.
It was. It was devastating.
Because you never would have thought that your grandson, your favorite, would ever have been excited about being a popular mass shooter, right? Never in a million years would have thought that.
Never.
And you also don't know that if given the chance, he wouldn't do this again to get more notoriety, right? You
No, I-
can't say that.
No, I can't. Absolutely not. There's no way anybody could say that.
And you also know, and you said it, that the best place for him is in custody because that's where he has the most structure and that's where he thrives, right? And that's where he should stay, right?
No.
Nothing further.
May you redirect?
We are.
All right, thank you. Come down.
That's my last question, Your Honor.
All right. Your client has a right to make a statement if he wants to. I don't know if you've discussed that today or.
We're not making a statement, Judge.
All right. You all ready for closings, or do you need a break?
I'd like a restroom break.
All right.
So, lots of it.
Take 10 minutes.
All right, so you've been listening in to the Colt Gray sentencing hearing. His grandmother taking the stand there for, seems like over an hour, starting with the defense, then being cross-examined by prosecutors. We also just saw something pretty significant. The judge coming to Colt Gray's team asking if he will take the stand, and they declined. He is not going to be taking the stand. They are going to take a 10-minute break now. When we come back on the other side of our break, we will be talking about this more and checking in with stories across the country. When they come back in 10 minutes, we will bring that to you live, because it looks like, if I am correct, he will not be taking the stand and they will be moving into closing arguments. We'll get clarification on that. Let's take a quick break. We'll see you on the other side. the stream. Faith Jesse joining you right here on 11 Alive 24/7. We're keeping an eyes and ears out for stories happening across our neighborhood, the country, and the world. We've been listening into the sentencing hearing for Colt Gray. This is the teen that was accused in the Appalachia High School shooting, that horrific shooting that took the lives of 2 students and 2 teachers. He has taken a plea deal in this case. So we are now within the sentencing hearing. For the last hour or so, Colt Gray's grandmother was on the stand, starting with the defense that called her to the stand and then a cross-examination from prosecutors. 11 Alive's Marissa Sarback was inside of the courtroom. She's joining us live now as they are on a 10-minute break. Marissa, this is a case you've been following very closely since shots rang out 2 years ago at Appalachia High School. Now we are in this sentencing hearing. Really interesting testimony from Colt's grandmother, even her at one point taking fault, saying that she is one of the biggest ones to blame here for his actions. What are we learning from this, and what do you think what weight will this have on the sentencing for Colt?
It's hard to say, Faith. I know that moment stuck out to me too, just when the grandmother was kind of taking accountability, saying she felt she might be the most guilty in this situation. Another thing, Faith, that I thought stuck out was when the prosecutor just asked the grandmother, which is Marcy's mother, whether or not she thought that Marcy and Colin were terrible parents. She said, I don't know if I'd say they were terrible parents, but they were close to it. Of course, we know Colin is behind bars now for his role in this mass shooting at Appalachia High School in 2024. Also today, earlier in court, we heard some of those jail phone calls between Colt when he was just 14 years old when he committed this with Marcy, his mother. They were speaking on a recorded line. Unclear whether or not they realized it was a recorded line at the time, that the DA could actually hear what they were discussing. But Colt was telling her about the comparisons between him and Adam Lanza and Nicholas Cruz, other former school shooters. And Marcy was making those comparisons herself. And I do want to read this because this was a note we had from court earlier, where Marcy was saying, apparently they can get audio of you talking to school shooters. We haven't talked about anything, I don't think, but I don't want them to think that I'm encouraging you to keep murdering. That is a statement that we heard from Marcy over, again, one of those recorded phone calls. Another thing, Marcy was coaching him on what he should say. So I think in the beginning when they were having these phone calls, they did not realize that they were recorded and that people had access within the jail to that. I think it was kind of clear that throughout that time, Marcy realized that people were able to listen in on these phone calls. But it really was her seemingly like coaching him through this. So very odd and really chilling phone calls and information. This isn't necessarily anything new either. We did hear from Colt himself yesterday. He was making those comparisons to people that he wanted to be compared to, Adam Lanza and Nicholas Cruz, also James Holmes, the Aurora movie theater shooter. So just really, really interesting details coming out just over the last couple of days. This really, Faith, feels like a mini condensed version of a trial at this point. And at this point, all we have left, we're waiting on this 10-minute recess, 10-minute break, but all we have left is closing arguments at this point before the judge makes a decision whether or not Colt will be behind bars for life, without parole, or with parole.
And that was going to be my next question to you, Marissa. Can you clarify, do we know if we're expected to find out his sentencing today?
Faith, sorry, if you are talking to me, I don't think I can hear you.
Court hearing right now. Something
I might
very
have you back
important to note that she said, if you're following this case, this is not a trial. Colt has already taken a plea deal. He's pleading guilty to this. So what this is, this is a sentencing hearing. The judge taking into account the testimony we just heard from his grandmother, as well as those who have spoken previously. Colt not going to take the stand. That's what we just learned before they went into this break. We'll be checking in with Marissa later as she continues to follow this and answer that question on if we will find out that sentencing. Right now, we do know that what is above being put before him, life in prison, but will that be with parole or without parole? That is what the judge will have to decide. He did take this plea deal, however, to avoid the death penalty. Let's take a quick break. We'll see you on the other side.
All right, 2:03 is your time right now. Zach Merchant taking over for the next couple hours here in the 11Alive Streaming Center. You're looking live inside of Barrow County Court where Colt Gray, the now admitted Appalachia high school shooter who took the lives of 4 people, injured 9 others, has returned to court where his sentencing hearing will continue. Let's listen back in now.
But I can't match the eloquence of the victims when they spoke on Friday, and I cannot comprehend the depths of their loss. So I will leave that with them, because I think they touched on it perfectly. But I do want to talk about Mr. Gray. I think it's become abundantly clear through the state's presentation of evidence that the ultimate goal of all of his actions and his underlying motive was to be famous, not in the sense that we adults think of fame, but specifically famous and popular within this subculture community known as the TCC. He self-identified as this, and he was an active, exuberant member of this group. And when this case happened, coming into it with an adult's perspective, and the investigation caught Colt right then, and then quickly in the days after, started to notice the guilt of his father, I kind of put aside thinking about Colt. And as the father's case went forward, I focused more on the father and what the father was doing. And it wasn't until after that trial, when we thought about this trial and this sentencing, that I started turning back to what was in Colt's mind. And I'd always just assumed that he was just this kid, had a bad upbringing, got wrapped up in this adoration of school shooters, and then he went and did this horrific act, and I just assumed that his response was, oh my God, what have I done? And it wasn't until this summer when I started digging into what Colt was thinking that the horror of what happened is not even the end of it. Because the shooting was not the culmination of the plan. The shooting was just one of the steps of the plan. The plan was ultimate and lifelong fame inside the TCC. He took steps before the shooting took place to put Easter eggs, callbacks into the case, anticipating today, anticipating these things, us being here, releasing them into the wild to keep his fame going. He put symbols and phrases on his rifle that all pertained to things that were important to the TCC. He staged his computer to look like Adam Lanza's. If you notice in those pictures, Adam Lanza had multiple screwdrivers around it set up in the middle of his room. He had multiple screwdrivers set up in the middle of his room and the hard drive open, exactly like Adam Lanza's. And it's not a coincidence, because you heard in his jail call him say, "Wait till the crime scene photos of my room are released." He thought about it ahead of time. The day he's doing the shooting, and he's supposed to be so lost in his mental illness, he has enough wherewithal to stage that in anticipation of the day in the future when they would be released. He sends the same text messages minutes before the shooting that Nicholas Cruz sent minutes before his shooting. This is not someone who's in some sort of uncontrollable emotional breakdown. He is still calculating up to the second of the shooting. He places his notebook on the desk to be found with all of those Easter eggs, referring back to Nicholas Cruz, Adam Lanza, James Holmes, because he knows they will be released at his trial. And then the shooting came, the next step of his master plan. Jason Smith interviewed him within the hour of the shooting. And he continues. He has the mental wherewithal within an hour of the shooting to place more Easter eggs, more callbacks inside that interview. The purple gloves. He must have said the word purple 5-6 times. Calling back to Kyle Rittenhouse. Telling them that he called the hotline. A blatant lie. And another callback to James Holmes. He's saying this with more steps are being done to his ultimate goal of eternal fame after the shooting. He mimics Nick Cruz's arrest interview. I hear voices. Oh, I blacked out. This is not someone who's in an emotional breakdown and realizes, oh my God, what have I done? This is someone who's in the midst of their plan and they're still going through with it. Within a month, he's getting the word out through his mom. He's looking to see the posts, if he's popular or not. He has already sent pictures to Mandy for Mandy to release. They're released. He's so excited. And make no mistake, Marcy's disgusting, and her actions are contemptible. But he's the one that's directing her what to do. He's the one that says, pull up Tumblr. Pull up mass killers on Reddit. Call Mandy. Tell Mandy to do this. Make sure that happens. I know she's supposed to be the parent, but he's the one that's directing all this. On the day of his court hearing in May of 2025, 9 months after the shooting, he came into this courtroom for a hearing where the weight of what he has done is supposed to fall upon him. And he's supposed to contemplate his rehabilitation, his sentencing, what is going to happen to me legally that day. But what does he do that night when he gets home? He's back on the internet, back in the TCC, concerned about what those people in the TCC think about his hair. And he's saying, get the word out. I'm going to grow my hair back out because they liked it longer. He had a bad childhood. We're not contesting that. But the childhood he had, and to try and say that that had anything to do with what he did, is offensive to the thousands of children in Georgia who are truly, truly brutalized every year. I know he's had a bad upbringing, but like I said, the defects. In this courtroom, we've seen a lot worse. And he's the only one in the history of Georgia who has ever taken an assault rifle into a public school and opened fire on perfect strangers simply so he could be famous. This is not easy, Your Honor. As the son of boys, the father of boys, I understand completely what Dr. Richards said. 14-year-olds have not fully formed into what they're going to become. I completely agree with that, and I understand that. But we've seen no evidence he has any ability to develop a conscience or any ability to ever fully value human life. It's like a shark in the swimming pool. I don't know why the shark's the way he is. Is he born that way? He had bad parenting? Is it instincts? Something terrible? It's truly evil? I don't know why the shark is the way the shark is. But I do know one thing. He can't be in my pool. Colt Gray cannot be in society. And I ask you to sentence him to life without the possibility of parole.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Judge. There's a reason that our legal system treats children differently. And Mr. Smith has just talked about it as part of his closing. They are immature. They're not fully developed. The characters can be changed, molded, and mangled by whatever force grabs onto them when it's not filled with the proper things. Colt Gray's life was not filled with the proper things. His parents didn't give him any stability. His parents didn't give him any of his needs. His parents didn't give him proper medical care. And most importantly, they did not give him proper psychological and mental health care. When they saw him deteriorating, when they saw him drawing into himself, when they saw him disappearing into his room, what did they do? They spent their time in their own worlds, on drugs, buying guns, and splitting up and coming back together and splitting up and changing schools and giving absolutely no stability. Children, in the best of circumstances, need stability. Children that have special needs, by nature, need even more stability, more predictability, not less. Colt got less. Colt had issues that his grandmother was willing or able to identify when he was young that the parents didn't do anything about. Colt got less stability than he needed, which made him even more vulnerable. As we look at how we sentence somebody, and we're not taking the position that he didn't do something wrong and heinous and horrible, that has to be admitted, and he's admitted that. And he's come forward today. He could have had a trial, but he didn't. He spared the community the trial by stepping up to do a plea to admit his guilt. He admitted his guilt that day on 2 occasions. Now, there may be some conversation as to whether it was every fact that he put in those interviews was honest fact or not honest fact, or changed or manipulated. he was traumatized before he did the shooting, traumatized by his own actions, and the trauma continued after the shooting when he finally realized what he did. Yes, he had some bits of clarity, but that is driven not by evil intent, but by a desire to be accepted. And that has been the whole drive of what he's done in the TCC community. If we look at Dr. Richards' report, on his recommendation, the factors that we need to consider, which come out of Miller versus Alabama, on how we sentence children who have done bad things, we have to look at his maturity level. These situations that they're citing to happened when he was 11, 12, and 13. And everyone that has dealt with any child knows they're 11, 12, and 13. They don't have any good sense, especially boys, when they're coming into that age range. Anything that's a risk is something that's worth doing. But when you're left isolated, when you're left with no moral grounding, when you're left with no proper parental figure, you search for it somewhere else. You search for a model. You search for a hero. You search for a community that is accepting to you. That's where the vulnerability part comes in. He jumped onto a community that he could get accepted in and started reflecting. They call it mimicking. He's reflecting the behaviors of the people he's reading online. It's not that he's mimicking shooters. He's reflecting the behaviors of the community that seems to be willing to accept him, but his own parents won't. Well, his own parents won't even give him the minimum that he needs to think of himself as being worthy. Yeah, he may not have been hearing the voices, but certainly he had and reflected ideations of wanting to end himself, but not. A level of self-hate that I can't begin to imagine. But that is the world that he was trying to cure by filling in with the world of the TCC and reflecting the same kinds of things that they were talking about. Well, I understand that the victims have lost a great deal in this. So Colt has not really lost because he didn't have. He didn't have those supports in his family, and he didn't have the help that he needed. His parents were obviously totally abject failures. But when we're looking again at somebody who was 11, 12, and 13 when they were trying to fill a hole, we can't say that from this day forward they will never be right again, because the law gives us some room to have that discretion. The law tells us we have to consider these factors of immaturity, vulnerability, and the potential of redemption, sometimes referred to in the law as incorrigibility. He is not irretrievably broken. That's been demonstrated by what he has done in DJJ. That's been demonstrated by the conversations and the development we've heard from both Ms. Brose and from Ms. Polhamus as to how he has changed when he finally got what he needed, which nobody had given him until this event. The idea of Easter eggs, you would have to assume a level of maturity of a 12 to a 13-year-old to be able to plan that out and to think that through. And we also need to look at the dynamic of Marcy and Colt in those conversations. Because a few months before that, Marcy had threatened to kill him. And now he's having a conversation where his mother is actually engaging with him, not threatening him. We've heard about from Ms. Brose again, the defects cases where his mother had abused him, and his mother got drunk around him, or high, or whatever drug of choice she had at the time. And now she's in a conversation with her where she's laughing with him. It's not him encouraging her to do something bad. It's trying to hang on to something that he didn't have without these horrible events. Judge, this is a hard decision because so many folks have been injured in ways that are indescribable. We've heard them, the families, testify to the impact on their lives. But that impact does not overweigh the court's responsibility to look at the factors in Miller and to understand that Colt was at an extremely vulnerable time in his life when he didn't get what he needed at a very young age. And that certainly doesn't mean that once we give him what he needs now going forward, he can't be made a productive member of society. The minimum that we understand, Judge, is life with parole. He will be given a life sentence. With parole, it gives him an opportunity of hope. Hope is an important factor in somebody becoming a different person than when they start. And if we give him life without parole, then that takes away the hope and that takes away the ability for him to change. With the help of the psychotropic drugs, with the counseling sessions, with the routine, with new structure and hope, he can ultimately be a person who contributes to the society at some point. Life without parole, Judge, I personally think as a policy matter is too harsh for any teenager. But I understand the law doesn't look at it that way. The law gives the court the discretion. The law gives the state the chance to prove that he is not redeemable. I don't think they proved that. They proved that what he did was very bad. They proved that what he did had some planning to it. But to the degree that he is such a twisted individual that he cannot be improved, I don't buy that. I don't think they proved that. I think what we have shown is that he can improve with the right help. And we're asking this court sentence him to the minimum, one count of life with parole.
Thank you. Any last words? All right. It's almost 2:30. I obviously have a lot of thoughts that I need to put to paper and organize. Do y'all have that flash drive you referenced?
Yes, sir. You put the file on there.
I don't know how long it's going to take me. It often takes me longer than I think it's going to. So I would say I'll shoot for 3:40. That's an hour and 15 minutes from now. I say this somewhat tongue-in-cheek. If I'm not done then, please wait longer. So 3:40 will be the goal. Thank you.
And you have been watching in live the sentencing hearing of that young man you see on your screen right there. That's Colt Gray, the admitted Appalachia High School shooter who took the lives of 4 people back in September of 2024 when he carried out an attack with a rifle in the early days of that school year at Appalachia High School in Barrow County. 9 other people were injured in that attack. Colt Gray pleaded guilty to his crimes last week, pleading guilty to all 55 counts against him. His plea then kicked off the sentencing phase of this proceeding. It's been going on for 2 full days and then a good chunk of Friday as well. So about 2.5 days of the sentencing hearing for Colt Gray. The question before the judge, as soon as that guilty plea was entered, was whether the judge would sentence Colt Gray to life with or without the possibility of parole. You just saw there the closing remarks from both Colt Gray's defense attorney and from the prosecutor in this case, Brad Smith, who is the Piedmont Judicial Circuit District Attorney. That circuit covers Barrow and Jackson counties. Barrow, of course, is the county where this tragedy, unlike any other in Georgia history, occurred back in 2024. I want to recap a little bit what we just heard in those closing arguments. And as I do so, I want to start by noting this. It's been a question throughout these proceedings how long they would take and then how long it would take once the proceedings, once the arguments, once the testimony was over, for the judge to render his decision. You saw the judge from the bench there at the culmination of the remarks from both the defense and the prosecution recess the court and say that he would be aiming to get back with the decision by 3:40, giving him about 70 minutes here. Judge said he had, as he put it, quote, a lot of thoughts he needed to put to paper and organize. The judge aiming for coming back in and delivering his sentence by 3:40, although the judge warned that that could take longer, saying, if I'm not done then, please wait longer, indicating that it appears a sentence will be rendered at some point today. Let's recap some of those closing remarks from the defense and the prosecution, starting with Piedmont Judicial Circuit District Attorney Brad Smith, who has led this case from the start. Brad Smith saying, quote, in reference to Colt Gray, I know he had a bad upbringing, but in this courtroom, we've seen a lot worse. And he's the only one in the history of Georgia who has ever taken an assault rifle into a public school and opened fire on perfect strangers simply so he could be famous. Brad Smith going on to liken Colt Gray to a shark, saying he doesn't know what makes a shark, whether it's their upbringing, their background, their circumstances. But what he does know, as Brad Smith, the district attorney, put it, is that he does not want a shark in his pool. He told the judge Colt Gray cannot be in society and ended his remarks asking the judge to sentence Colt Gray to life without the possibility of parole. And it was the defense's turn. The last remarks go to them. Defense attorney for Colt Gray leading, saying there is a reason our legal system treats minors differently, acknowledging that what happened was a heinous crime, but saying Colt Gray had taken responsibility by pleading guilty, by admitting his crime. He asked the judge to consider what the defense attorney described as the factors of immaturity, vulnerability, and the possibility of redemption, saying of Colt Gray, quote, he is not irretrievably broken. He went on to say, quote, parole gives him an opportunity for hope. Hope is an important factor for someone becoming a different person from where they started, and went on to say that Colt Gray can ultimately be a person who contributes to society at some point as he gets the help the defense attorney said that he clearly needed. The defense ultimately asking the judge to render a sentence of life with the possibility of parole. The ultimate decision is up to the judge, who is at work now getting ready to render that decision. A sentence appears to be on the way for the Appalachia High School shooter who took the lives of 4 people in September of 2024, 2 students, Mason Skirmahorn and Christian Angelo, and 2 adults on campus, math teacher Christina Irami and math teacher and football coach Richard Aspinwall. 9 others were hurt in that attack, according to the GBI. We're going to be with you every step of the way as we await a sentence in this case. As soon as we see court reconvene, we're going to take you there live. Right now, we are going to take a brief break. We'll be right back. 2:32 your time right now on this Tuesday afternoon, a very warm Tuesday afternoon. Meteorologist Julie Martin joining us right now in the midst of a weather impact alert. And if you go outside, you can probably feel why that alert is in place.
Yeah, to say the least, it is hot outside. And unfortunately, it is going to stay hot through this evening. We are under a weather impact alert, and we are also under a heat advisory because feels like temperatures are well into the triple digits. So from 12 to 8, we have high heat. It will feel close to 105 degrees for many of us. Do want to hydrate and stay cool. All of us are in this heat advisory except for extreme North Georgia. Heat index values could reach even as high as 109 degrees. So this is a look at the heat impacts as we head throughout beyond today. Tomorrow, we're still dealing with major heat impacts. Another hot day. And then Thursday and Friday, we scale back things a little bit. Even though the temperatures will still be warm, the humidity is going to come way down. So that will feel good. So 92 right now at Truist, feels like 104 there in Marietta. And our current temperatures throughout the area are in general from 90 to 95 degrees other than North Georgia. But the feels like temperatures are much more extreme. 104 downtown, 107 in Covington, 109 in Dalton. So a dangerous heat. You do want to take it easy. Frequent breaks are very important, as well as water. Taking a look at the forecast track, this is a feels like temperatures. So we factor in the humidity here. Does look like we will still remain in the triple digits even around 7 o'clock this evening. And even as we head into the overnight hours, we're still feeling like we're in the 80s for most of us. And then heading into tomorrow, back into the middle 90s for those feels likes. So not quite as bad. Thursday, though, look at this, much cooler feeling, even though our temperatures are going to be up around 90 degrees again. So the dew points make all the difference. Today, tomorrow, oppressive. Then we drop back near comfortable for Thursday, Friday. Humidity does start to creep back in, though, as we head to the weekend. So here's a look at what we can expect then. Wednesday, our heat index around 94, a little bit better. Heat index of 88 on Thursday, 90 Friday, 92 on Saturday. We're quiet on the satellite radar right now, but we could see maybe some storm development later on tonight. This particular model showing maybe some of those storms developing across North Georgia late, pushing through the metro. A lot of the models also showing this very weakening trend with this. So we will keep an eye. Chris Holcomb will be here, of course, tracking all of that for you. But just know there's a low-level severe weather threat, a level 1 out of 5. Level 2 in yellow for our eastern friends. And taking a look at what we can expect, the strong winds, the heavy rain, those would be in the highest categories. Very low chances of a tornado and low threats of hail. So the weather impact alert just for today, then we will still remain hot tomorrow. As I mentioned, Zach, temperatures are still in the 90s as we wrap up the week, but that humidity is going to make it feel a lot nicer. Then our rain chances return as we head into the weekend.
I think we look forward to any kind of break following today. At least, you know what, when we're in these really hot patches, when you see it only lasts until tomorrow, we'll take
Yeah,
that.
it's worse when it's one
A
of those
longer
week-long
stretch,
things. So
which we have seen.
We have seen.
So,
And
we'll take it.
we're still in summer, so we could see it again.
We could. And we'll take it as it comes, Julie. We know you and the rest of the team are going to get us through whatever comes our way.
Yep.
Thank you. Shifting gears now, we're going to take you to Washington, D.C., where President Donald Trump is at the lectern delivering remarks at Senator Lindsey Graham's funeral at Washington National Cathedral. Let's join it in progress now.
If you didn't share it, there was no fiercer or more constant opponent. Our nation needs more men and women like that great person sitting, laying, wherever he may be. I think I know where he is, and I think he's up there. I think he's watching us. I'm pretty sure of it. Scripture tells us that blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life. For 71 years, Lindsey Graham was strong and steadfast. As a brother, a senator, a warrior, and a patriot, he withstood every last test, every single test that you can go through and every trial. And now he wears the crown of life in heaven, reunited with his parents and reunited with his Lord. I end by saying something very, very special. Lindsay, we love you. God bless you. We will always be with you, and you were very, very special. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we have just been listening in to the closing moments of President Donald Trump's remarks at the funeral service for the late South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, a long-serving Republican in Congress, spent 3 decades representing his state, first in the House and then in the Senate. He died unexpectedly at the age of 71 on July 11th in Washington, D.C. As you look live inside of Washington National Cathedral, a memorial service for the late Senator Lindsey Graham. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back in on a very busy news day here in Georgia and all across the country. Another big topic we're tracking today for residents in parts of 6 metro Atlanta counties. It is Election Day. Believe it or not, Georgians are headed back to the polls again in what feels like a very busy and what legitimately has been a very busy election year already. The 13th Congressional District is a special election today. These 5 candidates you see on your screen right there, they're the 5 eligible candidates on the ballot today. The race is to serve out the remainder of the late Representative David Scott's term in office. That term runs through January, so the winner of this race is only going to be in Congress for a few months, but they could have some big decisions in front of them as the war in the Middle East continues, as budget questions loom, and as a whole host of other major topics. At any point with a job like that could bubble up and demand the attention of every legislator. So while it's a short term in the offing, it will be an important one. These 5 candidates represent 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans. The Democrats, Everton Blair, Carlos Moore, and Marcy Scott. The Republicans, Cesar Gonzalez and Faith Park. We've spoken with all 5 of them. Here's what they had to say in their own words.
We are in a moment that requires change and requires new leadership. And we deserve leadership that is tested and proven among us. And as the former chairman of the largest school system in the state of Georgia, and I know what it's like to have to lead on day one.
I'm running specifically to fulfill the remainder of my father's term, Congressman David Scott. He had a lot of funds that he requested. It was over $40 million that has been requested for the 13th district specifically, and they're going towards specific projects. It is my obligation and it is my priority to make sure those funds come down to the 13th district.
I think there are a lot of young families in the district who have been looking for that present representation and representation that shows up.
My priorities are to facilitate the district to make it more attractive for industry, for manufacturing.
If a Supreme Court justice is doing things unlawfully, I will file the impeachment against the Supreme Court justice. I'll file it against the president, the vice president, anyone that, with my constitutionally trained eyes, that I think has violated the Constitution. I will file the necessary articles.
And those candidates, again, you heard from them in this order. Everton Blair was first, a Democrat, followed by Marcy Scott, also a Democrat, who is the daughter of the late Representative David Scott. Faith Park was the third interviewee you heard from in that series there. She's a Republican. Cesar Gonzalez, another Republican. He was fourth. And Carlos Moore, a Democrat. He was the last person you saw interviewed in that series. Those are just small parts of extended conversations we've had with all 5 of these candidates. If you want to watch them in full before you go out and cast your ballot, because you've still got a number of hours while the polls are open, you can watch those full interviews, all streaming right now, right here on 11Alive. 2 more questions that you may have as we're talking about this special elections, questions we've gotten here. First off, who's eligible to vote? It's a reasonable question. The 13th Congressional District, it covers parts of 6 counties in metro Atlanta. That's Clayton, DeKalb, Gwinnett, Henry, Newton, and Rockdale counties. If you're questioning whether you fall into the district, the best way to figure it out, go to the Georgia Secretary of State's office's website. They've got what's called the My Voter page there. You plug in a couple of really basic details like your name, your address, and it will spit out what district you're in, what your polling location is, and it'll tell you all you need to know. So My Voter page from the Georgia Secretary of State's office, that's going to be your friend if you're trying to figure out if you're eligible to vote, A, in this race, and then B, if you are, where you go to cast your ballot. Second of these 2 questions we get asked a lot. Well, what happens in November? We've got the midterms. We've got the general election in November. How does that relate to this special election? Another good question and an understandable one, because we have certainly had a lot of opportunities to go to the polls and cast ballots across the state. The general election race in the 13th Congressional District is between Democrat Jasmine Clark, and we're going to get the name of the Republican here in just a second, but that is the general election race to serve out a full 2-year term in office. This race, the special election, That's to serve just out the remainder of the late Representative David Scott's term in office. It goes until January, which is the end of David Scott's current term in office. We're going to get you the full names of both of those candidates in the general election in just a moment. That's not off until November, so we've got some time before the general election. That's the breakdown of the special election right here. While we're talking about the special election, though, and looking ahead to the midterms, it's not just us here in Georgia with midterm elections. Everybody in the country is going to be dealing with high-stakes midterms come November. NBC's Alice Barr has a look at all you need to know.
Hi there. Many Republicans are urging President Trump to focus on the economy, though his attention is divided by multiple global conflicts, highlighted today in his meetings with two world leaders looking for American support. President Trump today set for high-stakes meetings with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and Ukrainian President Zelensky, who's pressing for more American missile defense systems amid mounting concerns the U.S. weapons stockpile may be running low in the war with Iran.
We have a lot. I'd like to have more, to be honest, but so much was given to Ukraine by Biden.
The U.S. and Iran held off on trading strikes again overnight as President Trump argues the streak of fighting before drove Iran to negotiate, though Iran's foreign ministry denied direct talks with Washington.
We're beating the hell out of them, but we'll see how it turns out. Right now, there are very friendly negotiations going on.
The president speaking there in swing state Michigan, boosting Republican candidates less than 100 days before the midterm elections and zeroing in on the economy, pointing to oil prices dropping on hopes for renewed Iran talks, and while touring a General Motors facility, arguing his tariffs have helped the auto industry despite its reliance on the global supply chain.
We've been very good to General Motors, and the rest of the world doesn't love me, but that's okay. It's called America First.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent arguing the economic picture will improve before the November midterms.
Inflation will come down. We'll get to the other side of Iran, and I think the feel-good factor will come back.
Though President Trump insisted he does not feel pressure to quickly end the war with Iran, that is broadly unpopular with American voters. Netanyahu and Zelensky are here for the funeral services for the late Senator Lindsey Graham. And this evening, the Senate is set to vote on moving forward with a new Russia sanctions bill that Graham had been pressing for. In Washington, I'm Alice Barr. Back to you.
So that's the state of play right now at the national level, with some big policy issues and some big economic issues that are going to impact one way or another a lot of what we see take place in November in these pivotal midterms. 13th Congressional District, the general election here, that's going to be between Democratic State Representative Jasmine Clark and Republican nominee Jonathan Chavez. That's the matchup in the general election for the 13th here. That election is for a full 2-year term. Voters will vote in November. Today is the special election to serve out just the next couple months the remainder of the late Representative David Scott's term in office. 2:52 is our time right now. Stay with us. We'll be right back. believe it or not, the summer break for a lot of Metro Atlanta students, it is soon to be coming to an end. Summer break about to be over. It's not even August yet. This is where we are. A lot of school districts go back to school. What seems to me a little early, but that's what's happening. Schools in the Metro Atlanta area, they're getting ready to head back to class. An AI tool for school children is drawing some attention. Concern about using AI to test young children for dyslexia. 11Alive's Doug Richards is hearing from both parents and educators.
And I'm here to help millions of students find...
An AI program for schools has a family-friendly cartoon character to tout its learning and testing tools.
Hi, I'm Amira, your learning agent for reading growth.
In its video, the company says Clayton County school teachers are among those who have used its AI with school children.
Think about one teacher in a classroom,
saying it reduces their workload.
Amira steps in and does a phenomenal job with lifting that load.
The state of Georgia is funding Amira for school systems that want to use it. But some parents are asking whether using an artificial intelligence tool on a school system's youngest students is a smart choice.
Parents have definitely raised some concerns about whether or not the AI tool that was used as a part of the dyslexia screener was leaving, I guess, what they call personal imprints.
We're giving them our kids' data, their images, their voices.
Carolyn Boyd is a former teacher now sending a child of her own to kindergarten. She thinks school systems using Amira or other AI tools need to reconsider.
I don't feel safe having my kids' images and voices just out in the ether being used to train AI models to replace the staff that the schools should be hiring.
APS board chair Jessica Johnson says because Amira is state funded, opting out is complicated.
We've reached out to the state to identify if parents are uncomfortable because the state is paying for this Amira tool. I think there's some processes that we have to follow in terms of making sure that our students are screened.
Johnson says APS this week is trying to clarify under what circumstances a child can get alternate testing without using an AI program. In Northeast Atlanta, Doug Richards, 11Alive News.
And of course, our coverage of back to school continues and is only going to ramp up as schools and more students start to actually head back. First day back to class for lots of kids. It's coming up quickly. That also means the first day back in class for lots of Metro Atlanta teachers, and they are already working hard, as they always are, to get their classrooms ready for that very first day back. Some are set, though, to spend hundreds of dollars on school supplies because, as 11Alive's Joe Ripley reports, support is not always guaranteed.
Giselle Velez is the first in her family to go into teaching. She's getting ready to enter year 2 at Hopkins Elementary School in Lilburn.
I was a first-gen immigration graduate, so now I just wanted to give back to my community and be an inspiration for others.
Velez says she'll typically spend around $150 on school supplies for her classroom.
Pencils, pens, third grade, they start to learn how to edit their paper, so that's where the pens come in.
Walmart digital fulfillment coach Denier Jenkins calls the weekend before back to school one of the busiest store-wide, both in person and online.
We make sure that we have more staffing than usual. We try to make sure we got people in every place that's needed, especially when that customer demand spikes.
Jenkins says as prices spike due to inflation, the store is committed to making essential supplies more affordable.
These are the lowest prices that we've had since 2019. Times are hard right now, so we want to make sure that we can do our part as a store and as a company just to make sure that we're providing the best that we can.
Pharmacy manager Pantia Mortazavi says hand sanitizer and disinfectant spray will come in handy too as she balances immunizations for kids heading back to class.
Back to school is more than just backpack and supplies. It's about health, wellness, and be ready and readiness.
Giselle Velez is doing her part to have her classroom ready on day 1.
I do it because of the love of the kids. Not everyone grows up with a stable economic background. I was provided a lot of school supplies from my teachers growing up, so if anything, because of my calling, I want to do the same thing for others.
Joe Ripley, 11Alive News.
You know, when you're a little kid, if you're blessed to go into a classroom that's got all the pencils and all the markers and all the extras, the poster boards, decorations on the walls. If you're lucky enough to be in that environment, you can run the risk as a second grader, taking it for granted. The gift of growing up is that you get to see behind all that magic is a lot of work done by countless educators all across our state and all across our country, and they deserve our gratitude. First day of school for Gwinnett County, that's coming up on August 5th. That's right around the corner. We'll be right back. Welcome back in. 3:02 is your time on this Tuesday afternoon. A big day in Metro Atlanta, a big day in Georgia, a big day in Georgia history. We are now awaiting the sentence for the admitted Appalachia high school shooter, Colt Gray, who took the lives of 4 people and injured 9 others when he carried a rifle into Appalachia High School back in September of 2024 and carried out an attack that he has now pleading guilty to all 55 counts against him last week. We've now been listening right alongside of you to 2+ days of the sentencing hearing for Colt Gray. The question before the judge is whether to sentence Colt Gray to life with or without the possibility of parole. We heard the last remarks from both the prosecution and the defense teams just about 40 minutes ago. The court is now on break, and we are awaiting the judge to return and render his sentence. Our Marissa Sarback is standing by right now, live outside of Barrow County Superior Court, where, Marissa, you have been following every development in this hearing. What has stood out to you so far through the closing moments of the proceedings we heard today?
Yeah, of course, closing arguments, Zach, are always pretty interesting. I will say they were a lot shorter than I expected them to be, really only a couple of minutes for each the prosecution and the defense team. The prosecution saying that Colt really deserves to be behind bars without the possibility of parole. That's what they've been arguing with kind of this mini trial that we've had here for the sentencing hearing, and just the many people that they've brought onto the stand to explain this. They wrapped that up in summation today, talking about how he really should not be out in society. Of course, defense are arguing the opposite, saying that they understand he's going to have life behind bars, but they want him to have that opportunity for the possibility of parole at some point in his adult life. So again, both very short, but arguing for opposite things here. And what was interesting, I thought, this morning, Zach, was kind of that continuation that we've heard, the conversations between Marcy and Colt. We did get into this a little bit yesterday, just at the end of the day before court wrapped up for the day. But today we also heard more in that. The recorded phone calls from inside jail when Colt was talking to Marcy. In the beginning of those conversations, it was clear that neither of them realized they were on recorded lines, and the DA might be able to eventually hear those conversations, and that people in the jail would be able to hear those conversations. You could hear Marcy telling Colt that people in the community were comparing him to previous school shooters like Adam Lanza from Newtown, Connecticut, as well as Nicholas Cruz from the Parkland shooting in Florida. Of course, we know Nicholas Cruz has been somebody Colt identifies himself as somebody he finds to be inspiring, somebody he tried to follow in his footsteps. So the conversations between Marcy and Colt were really interesting, Zach. We were hearing Marcy tell Colt that people in the community were hearing that he was comparing, they were comparing Colt to these shooters. And this is exactly what Colt actually wanted. He told at one point, and I want to make sure I get this correct, so I just want to read this. He told the mom, Marcy, to tell the grandmother to get her internet up for her celebrity grandson. So this is something showing that he's quite proud of this. Another conversation, Marcy realizing that people could listen into these phone calls through the jail at some point, telling him, apparently they have audio of you talking to the school shooters. We haven't talked about anything, I don't think, but I don't want them to think that I'm encouraging you to keep murdering. It seemed like Marcy was coaching him through this while he was in jail. Both of them taking a really lighthearted tone from what you could hear on those calls too, which was really jarring. Marcy at many points laughing, Colt also doing the same thing. We also heard testimony, Zach, today from the grandmother. She was getting up for the defense, and she did share a couple of pieces of new information. Of course, we did hear from her a lot during Colin Gray's trial, but today she was saying she wouldn't call them terrible parents, referring to Marcy and Colin, but saying that almost or close to terrible. Also taking accountability, saying that she felt she might be actually the most guilty in this. So quite a few things from today really stood out there, Zach.
It was difficult to listen to a lot of the testimony over the course of the last few days, and today certainly no exception. Marissa, has the judge given any indication as to what factors may be most important in his decision making, and he weighs what sentence to render here?
That's a good question, Zach. I think one thing that I noted from the judge just before he told everybody to take a break while he reviews all of the evidence and reviews the testimony and just kind of has some time to think about what he's heard the last few days, he asked to see the hard drive. So that's going to be really, I think, a key factor in here, which contains some of those drawings that we saw from Colt's notebook that the investigator Jason Smith had talked about in that interview the day of the shooting when they had taken Colt into custody. He was talking about the notebook that they found that detailed out Colt's to-do list, and that was the day of the shooting. Things that he was telling himself to remind himself to do, how to pack the rifle, how to prepare with what he was going to wear. So a lot of those detailed drawings depicting the classroom as well, Miss Greer's classroom, the classroom that he tried to shoot up, a lot of that was in the notebook. And so those are some of the things on the hard drive that we think the judge really might pay attention to and specifically asked for just before he told the court to take a break, and he would be back starting approximately at 3:40. But of course, we know he could take more time before he comes out with an answer.
And Marissa, we know that the families of so many of the victims have been in court. They have been following these proceedings from the very beginning. And as we get to this moment where we could, in short order, be seeing what sentence Colt Gray receives, I wonder what the reaction has been and what the tenor and tone has been from the parents, the families, the friends and loved ones of those who were killed and those who were injured in this attack that took place in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I never want to speak for the family, but I can tell you just in the courtroom, it is excruciating. The emotion has been really heavy, just listening to the victim impact statements, listening to some of the recordings that we did not hear in Colin Gray's trial back in March that we're hearing now that have finally come out, just telling about Colt and these drawings and the premeditated nature that these were showing, drawings and a to-do list, stuff like that, plus the remorse that Colt had shown in the interview with law enforcement, and then law enforcement said that they did not feel that that was a genuine emotion that was coming across from Colt. So I think it's probably a little bit of a mixed reaction and mixed feeling for all of these families. And of course we have Colt today, and we're expecting his father Colin to be sentenced on Thursday. So I can imagine that this is a very heavy week for these families, and to sit there and rehash all of this just a few months later after Colin Gray's trial, I can imagine it's just extremely difficult to do, Zach.
All right, Marissa Sarback, thank you very much. It is 3:10 right now as we continue to stand by for the sentence of Colt Gray. The judge, before recessing the court about half an hour ago, maybe 40 minutes ago at this point, said he was aiming to reconvene and bring court back into session at about 3:40 to deliver his verdict about half an hour from now, although the judge warned it could take longer. But in his remarks, indicated that it is his intention, at least at the last point that we heard from him, to deliver that sentence at some point today. The big question before the judge, whether to sentence Colt Gray to life with or without the possibility of parole. As soon as the judge reconvenes court, we're going to bring that to you live, streaming right here on 11Alive. Right now, we're going to take a brief break. We will be right back. All right, we're taking you live right now to Seattle, where law enforcement is delivering an update following a shooting that took place Sunday night near the Seattle Space Needle that took the lives of 3 people. Let's join this press conference in progress.
Throughout the course of the summer, and for our friends at the Seattle Center and our colleagues, we are here to provide any help or support that you need. And let me finish by saying this. We know that our community is grieving. People have a lot of questions, and we're doing our best to answer those. We know that the families of these victims are grieving. I attended the vigil last night along with the mayor and had an opportunity to see some family members and experience an amazing community-led event. And it was really, for me, it was truly an honor to be there with the family. For our officers and first responders who ran toward gunfire and was able to disarm a 15-year-old with a very dangerous weapon without a use of force should be complimented. And so I want to thank our officers, our first responders, our firefighters, our paramedics who also ran toward danger to render aid to people, which included a 2-year-old that was shot. I want to thank them for their work. We need the community's help in resolving this and making sure that all who were involved in this are held accountable. And we also need your help to make sure that if you know of any existing or ongoing conflicts, that we as adults, that we as community members work hard to resolve those conflicts to ensure that something like this does not happen again. I believe we can do that through the power of community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Barnes. So as you heard, automatic ghost guns were involved. And I cannot stress enough that this is why we have initiated a multi-pronged approach to fight gun violence. There's not, one thing that we can do that is going to solve this problem. We need to do many things. We'll take some questions now.
Mayor, I think we just heard from the chief the struggles with solving this crime and that there were not real-time cameras in this area of Seattle Center. This speaks to what proponents of that whole system have been asking for, which is more cameras in this city. Did your perspective change based on the inability of the police department to solve this crime?
So the police department is continuing to work on solving this crime. As the chief mentioned, we do have footage from cameras at Seattle Center. My understanding is the police department is also reviewing footage from private businesses around Seattle Center to see if there is relevant information there.
But in terms of the expansion of the program, which has been an issue for you since the start of your mayoral administration, does your perspective change based on what we have talked about now over the last 48 hours?
So CCTV cameras at Seattle Center have, to my knowledge, never been part of the proposed expansion to the CCTV camera program. And we are continuing to follow the course that I charted out earlier this year, which is we are awaiting results of a data security and privacy audit, and an evaluation of the pilot program is ongoing, and there will be a public conversation and decisions made on the basis of what we learned from those.
Why were there no alerts, text alerts sent out? This is an issue that Bob Kettle now has said was a valid question to be asked going forward. The alert system, Alert Seattle, did not tell anybody that there was an active shooter, did not tell anybody the Seattle Center was closed. What have you found out in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, no, I mean, that is a valid question, and we're going to be working closely with SPD and with our Office of Emergency Management moving forward to make sure that we're using every possible avenue to get information out to the public in the future.
Mayor Wilson, we have new information now that is shedding light into that 5-hour delay. We have new information coming in saying that between 7:45 and 8 p.m. Sunday night, that someone in your office talked to SPD leadership saying that they could not hold that press conference, and SPD leadership wanted to actually hold it immediately, and they were told it was because of dignitaries. So I'm going to ask you again, did anyone in your office tell SPD leadership that they could not hold that press conference between 7:45 and 8 p.m. Sunday night?
That is not my understanding, no.
Do you know if there's anyone else in your office that are making these calls without your knowledge?
That is not my understanding, no. So
All right, we've been listening in live to an update from Seattle leadership, including law enforcement leadership, following a deadly shooting that took place Sunday night near the Seattle Space Needle. It took the lives of 3 people. We're going to shift gears right now, though. As we continue to monitor that, we have another big story we've got to track here closer to home, and that is dangerous heat that we are enduring here. We're under a weather impact alert. Meteorologist Julie Martin joining us now. Julie, I'm think rarely at a loss for words, but this is one of them. It's just hot. There's no other way to put it. It's really, really hot out there.
Yeah, and fortunately, it's just kind of a short-lived heat, though. It's not those long-duration heat waves. But we've got to get through it tonight. We are still in a heat advisory right now. That goes until 8 p.m. That's pretty much everyone except for extreme North Georgia in the mountains there. So this is that heat alert. Heat index value is up to 109. We are under a weather impact alert as well because of the heat. So hydrate, stay cool, going to need to. And even as we head into tomorrow, we're still going to be dealing with major heat impacts, but not quite as bad as today. Thursday, Friday look much better in terms of the humidity coming down, and that will make all the difference. Right now, we are at 94 out at Truist Park. Feels like 105. Winds are out of the west around 16, but all of us sitting at least in the low to mid 90s, except for the North Georgia mountains. And then it looks like our feels like temperatures right now are all pretty much in the triple digits. Covington, the winner, with 110. Dalton at 109. And it looks like we will stay very hot as we head throughout this evening. Even at 10:30 tonight, our feels like temperatures are still at 90 degrees downtown. So very warm as we head into the overnight hours into tomorrow. Still dealing with the feels like temps in the 90s, but not the triple digits, fortunately. And then on Thursday into Friday, much more comfortable air starts to work its way in with the humidity levels coming down. So those will come down more to the humid to comfortable category instead of the oppressive, which is where we are right now. So here's a look at the next few days. Wednesday, our feels like at 93, 88 though on Thursday, 88 on Friday, 93 back on Saturday as all that humidity starts to creep back in. Quiet right now on our satellite and radar, following the models showing possibly some storms firing up late this evening, possibly making their way through the metro area, but primarily in North Georgia. We'll see if it holds together at this point. Chris Holcomb will be tracking all of that for you into this evening. Right now, it's a low-level severe threat, a level 1 out of 5. And the primary threats there would be the gusty winds, the heavy rain, low tornado threat, very low, and a low hail threat. Then we're dry until Saturday. That's when we start to see our rain chances pop back up for the weekend. And your 7-day looks like this. Temperatures are going to cool back into the 80s as we head into next weekend as well. I say cool. It's still going to be hot. It's still going to be summer as we head into August, but the triple digits won't be likely around, at least for the next few days as we wrap up this week.
We'll take anything we can get.
Yeah.
I always laugh, not like haha. But whenever we see something oppressive in the official terminology here,
I know.
Not good.
Not good.
Not where we want to be.
Yeah, it's just dangerous if you have to be outside for long periods of time. Keep an eye on your pets, keep an eye on your people, stay hydrated, all the things to do.
Particularly for folks who are working outside.
Yeah, it's
if
tough.
you're outside or somebody who perhaps doesn't have a place to come inside, this is really worth paying attention to. And we know, Julie, as always, you guys are going to get us through it and keep us ahead of what has been a busy summer of weather.
Yeah.
Julie,
sure.
thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
3:22 is your time right now. We're going to take a very brief break. We'll be right back with much more. We're tracking some more severe summer weather. A powerful tornado struck northern Wisconsin yesterday, and it turned entire communities into, at least parts of them, piles of rubble. The devastation was substantial. NBC's Maggie Vespa reports from Menasha, Wisconsin.
Hey there from Menasha, Wisconsin, a city that is largely, as you can see, destroyed. Most buildings here at least badly damaged. In this area, it's like home after home, just in pieces. That one in pieces, this one in pieces, that truck flipped upside down. We just talked to a man who said his wife was inside that truck, told him it flipped several times over the course of about 100 yards as that reported tornado just roared through this city yesterday. But he said, miraculously, she not only survived, but she only has bruises, not even any broken bones. And he called it a miracle. We're seeing people coming out here to kind of survey the damage, survey the scope of this storm and how big it was. Close to 5 reported tornadoes across multiple states, 200 storm reports in the area. We saw heavy wind, rain, hail in the Chicago suburbs. And then an update on a sort of crisis in progress that we were on the scene for last night in Downers Grove, Illinois, where authorities said 2 contractors were trapped in an underground storm drain as it was flooding with that sudden rush of rainwater. They told us overnight one of the contractors, thanks to emergency crews, was rescued. He's hospitalized in good condition. They say the other one is still missing, and they called conditions in that storm system, quote, extremely dangerous because of all of that sudden rainwater and sudden flooding in the area. So again, just devastation across multiple states in this latest round of severe summer weather.
And our thoughts certainly with all those who are impacted by that serious weather. And it's not just here in the United States either, unfortunately. A powerful earthquake struck southern Japan today. There are reports of multiple injuries and people who could be trapped in the rubble throughout the region. NBC's Raf Sanchez has the latest there.
This 7.1 magnitude quake striking the Kumamoto region in southern Japan around 4:30 p.m. local time, according to Japanese officials. It initially triggered a tsunami warning. People were told to get away from the coast. That warning was lifted, but we are now starting to get a sense of the damage. Real chaos all across the region, including in a local Costco. You could see boxes falling off of high shelves onto customers in the aisles. Witnesses say some people were actually stuck underneath the debris. And we are tracking an explosion at a mall in the region. The second floor of that mall collapsing. Police say several people were trapped inside, and now multiple people are feared to have lost their lives. Bridges, roads buckling all across the area, train services suspended, including some of those high-speed bullet trains that Japan is known for, and the walls of a 16th century castle popular with tourists crumbling amid the tremors. Around 50,000 people, 50,000 homes have lost power. Authorities say the race is on now to restore electricity, but this unfortunately is a region with a lot of experience in this. 10 years ago, there was a massive quake that killed 275 people, and it injured thousands more. Raf Sanchez, NBC News, London.
Back live to Seattle, where law enforcement continues to deliver updates following a shooting that took the lives of 3 people close to the Seattle Space Needle on Sunday. Let's listen in.
Okay.
Do one here and one here, and then we're going to start cutting it, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, just really quickly, let's talk about this delay. Now that people have had time to digest that it took so long to get information, what is your message to the citizens of Seattle? We've got another large event coming up this weekend. What are you going to do to make sure there's clearer, faster, better communication to people when they need it?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I think as I've said before, there's this tension between providing information fast and making sure that it is accurate so that we're not creating unnecessary confusion. And that is part of what we've been dealing with here. At the same time, we are absolutely reviewing what has happened over the last 24, 48 hours. We are going to be making improvements as we go to make sure that we are being as timely and communicative and transparent as possible.
What do you hear this? I mean, what would you want to say? People really want to hear, and how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we are we are trying hard in a very difficult and chaotic situation. And if you've been through situations like this in the past, like our police officers have, right, like information flies around, and it is just objectively challenging to be able to assess in real time and kind of decide what is shareable and what is, what we should hold back on. So this is a work in progress, and we will be continually working to improve as well.
Who fired the rounds that, do we know who fired the rounds that killed the innocent bystanders? Do we know, Chief?
We do not, yes, sir.
We do not.
For both of you, today you would say again that there's no public safety threat. Yesterday you were talking about investigators looking at the threat of retaliation. Can you help people understand how there may not be a threat with the threat of retaliation, and have you worked with the people who may be targets of that retaliation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line here is that because we believe this was a targeted shooting, we don't believe that there's anyone out there who is, wants to indiscriminately fire at people, right? At the same time, because we believe that this was gang-related violence, there is absolutely a danger to the people who are involved in those relationships, right? And so that is why we are working with our community partners, community organizations that do this work to try to do everything we can to prevent retaliation, to prevent continuation of violence.
How are you all working to protect those people?
I mean, so we have a number of organizations that we work with and fund through the Human Services Department that that do that work, and we can provide more detail about that if you want. But yeah.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Chief, what video are you working with? Do you want CCTV cameras there?
If you want to get in contact with me, then you can ask your question and I'll do that.
And we have just watched the conclusion of that update following a triple fatal shooting in Seattle on Sunday. It took place close to the Space Needle there. 3:32 is your time. We're getting ready to go to a quick break. As we do, we just want to continue to mention that we are standing by for the sentencing of admitted Appalachia High School shooter Colt Gray that could be taking place at any moment. If you've been with us for the afternoon, you know that the judge recessed court about an hour ago. You're looking at our live camera right now inside of that Barrow County courtroom. The picture on the seal of the state of Georgia right now. The judge, when he recessed court, said he was going to take some time as he put it together his thoughts, organize his thoughts, and get ready to deliver his sentence. He said he was aiming to come back and reconvene court at 3:40. That was a loose target. He noted from the bench it could take longer. He indicated, though, it was his goal to deliver his sentence today. We're keeping a close eye on this. We're going to go to a brief break. As soon as we know more from the courtroom, we're going to take that to you live. 13-year-old has died following a shooting just west of downtown Atlanta. Ariana Manise spoke with the victim's uncle and has the latest from the scene.
Atlanta police have confirmed a 13-year-old boy died from a gunshot wound inside of this home along Lindsay Street. Now, police say we're here for much of the morning processing this scene. Police say they're still waiting for information from the medical examiner, and they say it's too early to determine how the 13-year-old was shot. Police say several people were inside the home when the shooting happened. No one else was hurt. Investigators say they spent the morning interviewing people who were inside the house as they worked to piece together what led up to the shooting. We spoke to the 13-year-old boy's uncle, who says that he's still trying to figure out exactly what happened.
The way he was laying, what they just told me, I mean, I don't understand. I'm really upset myself. For a young kid like that, man, for a young kid like that to be like he was sleeping. It looked like he was sleeping, that's what they're telling me. So I'm not understanding. Then he had a phone. They say he had a phone on his chest, so I'm not sure.
Now, police tell us that this home belonged to a family member. His uncle tells us that he was spending the night at the home at the time of this shooting. As of right now, police have not provided any more information if anyone will face any charges. They're only saying this is a death investigation at this point. Reporting from Atlanta, I'm Ariana Manise for 11Alive.
All right, 3:38 is your time right now this Tuesday afternoon. We are standing by at any moment. We expect the judge about to re-enter the courtroom. At any moment, it could happen as early as about 3:40, so within the next 2 minutes, and deliver his sentence of Colt Gray, the admitted Appalachia high school shooter. You're looking live inside of the courtroom right now. This is our live camera inside of that courtroom right now. Of course, it is on the seal of the state of Georgia, as it has been for the better part of the roughly last 70 minutes. The judge, before recessing the court about 70 minutes ago, said it would take him, he suspected, a little while to organize his thoughts and get ready to render the sentence. As soon as he returns and court comes back in session, we're going to take it to you live. The judge has a big decision to make in sentencing Colt Gray. The decision is whether to render a sentence of life with or without the possibility of parole. And for the better part of the last 2+ days, we have been listening in live to what has been at many points gut-wrenching testimony throughout the sentencing phase of this hearing following Colt Gray's guilty plea on Friday to all 55 counts against him, including multiple murder charges. It all stems from the September 2024 attack Colt Gray carried out at Appalachia High School in the very early days of the school year, when he brought a rifle to school and opened fire. He took the lives of 4 people, 2 students, Mason Skirmahorn and Christian Angelo, and 2 adults, a math teacher, Christina Irami, and a math teacher and a football coach, Richard Aspinwall. Colt Gray injured 9 others, according to the GBI. Today we heard closing remarks from both the prosecutor and the defense attorney. Recap what both of them said here. Piedmont Judicial Circuit District Attorney Brad Smith delivered the closing remarks from prosecutors, saying in part, quote, of Colt Gray, "I know he had a bad upbringing, but in this courtroom we have seen a lot worse. And he is the only one in the history of Georgia who has ever taken an assault rifle into a public school and opened fire on perfect strangers simply so that he could be famous." The district attorney went on to describe Colt Gray, likening him to a shark, saying he doesn't know what makes a shark a shark. Is it their upbringing, their background, their circumstances? The DA, Brad Smith, said. He said all he knows is that the shark shouldn't be in the pool with everybody else. Brad Smith said Colt Gray cannot be in society, and ended his closing remarks asking the judge to sentence Colt Gray to life without the possibility of parole. After Brad Smith stepped down, it was the defense attorney's turn to deliver his closing remarks, and the defense attorney led his remarks with this, telling the judge, "There is a reason our legal system treats minors differently." Colt Gray was in his early teens when he carried out the attack back in September of 2024. The defense attorney asked the judge to consider factors of immaturity, vulnerability, and the possibility of redemption, saying, quote, of Colt Gray, he is not irretrievably broken. He said that they are not contesting that what happened, what Colt Gray did, was a heinous act. But the defense attorney also argued that Colt Gray had admitted to it, that he had pleaded guilty, that in so doing he spared the community of Barrow County, the community of Winder, of having to go through a trial that went step by step through the excruciating details of that day. Defense attorney urging the judge to reach a sentence of life with the possibility of parole, saying, quote, parole gives him an opportunity for hope. Hope is an important factor for someone becoming a different person from where they started. Going on to say that Colt Gray, in the defense attorney's view, quote, can ultimately be a person who contributes to society at some point. The defense attorney also telling the judge that in his view, life without parole is too much for any teenager. That was the thrust of the closing remarks from the defense team, urging the judge to reach a sentence of life with the possibility of parole. To be clear, a sentence like that is not a guarantee that parole would ever be granted, but it does open the door to, at some point, parole being granted, whereas a life sentence without the possibility of parole means there is no chance at all. There is no parole possibility. And that is that choice that the judge has to weigh. Earlier throughout the sentencing hearing, we heard victim impact statements from family and loved ones of a number of the victims of that September 2024 shooting, some of them urging the judge to reach a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. We're going to know what the judges decided in short order. Again, if you're just joining us, we're standing by awaiting the sentencing of admitted Appalachia High School shooter Colt Gray. 3:44 is your time right now on this Tuesday afternoon. As we are monitoring, you're looking live here. It's a still image, but you're looking live at our feed coming from inside that Barrow County courtroom. Right now it's up static on the seal of the state of Georgia. But as soon as court returns and comes back into session, we're going to be playing for you the entirety of the proceeding there where we expect the judge to reach his sentence. This moment, coming almost 2 years from the date of that attack that took place in early September of 2024, is a sentencing of the admitted killer who carried out that attack that day, Colt Gray. It's going to be one of what we expect to be 2 sentencings related to that attack, because Colt Gray's father, Colin Gray, is also expected to be sentenced this week for his role in that attack. Colin Gray, he was charged in connection to the shooting. He was convicted in March on all 27 counts against him, including 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 18 counts of cruelty to children, and 5 counts of reckless conduct. The jury in Colin Gray, the father's case, finding Colin Gray criminally responsible for providing Colt access to the firearm used to carry out the attack. Colin Gray's sentencing is scheduled to begin this Thursday. So in the span of 1 week, the father and the son will both be sentenced for their roles in the mass shooting that took place at Appalachia High School in 2024. It took the lives of 4 people. Mason Skirmahorn and Christian Angelo, 2 students, and 2 adults on campus, Christina Irami and Richard Aspinwall. It also injured 9 others, according to the GBI. It's 3:46 right now as we continue to stand by. And this is as we were warned. If you're with us throughout the afternoon, the judge, following the conclusion of the closing remarks from the defense and the prosecution, he said that 3:40 was the goal to come back into session. But as he put it too, he said, quote, I don't know how long it's going to take me. He said he's aiming for 3:40. He said, if I'm not done then, please wait longer. It was a bit of a question whether the judge would reach a sentence at all today as the proceedings were carrying on. The judge indicating that it was his goal to do so at some point today, obviously taking a little bit longer than that 3:40 mark, which is not surprising. As we continue to monitor this, let's do this, guys. Let's take a very brief break. And while we roll this break, just our promise to you, if things do develop while we're in the break, we're going to come right back out. So trust that you are not going to miss anything. .350 is your time right now as we are standing by at any moment. We expect court to come back in session in Barrow County, where the judge in the case of admitted Appalachia High School shooter Colt Gray will deliver his sentence and make public his decision of whether to sentence Colt Gray, who killed 4 people in that September 2024 attack, of life with or without the possibility of parole. And guys, we were going to go to that soundbite, but let's stay here. We're getting word right now that court is set to come back into session at any moment. We're getting notes that are crossing our desk here that deputies are back inside of the courtroom in a full courtroom, which is an indication that a resumption of the proceedings is happening at any moment. You see movement on the camera now. Colt Gray, who has pleaded guilty to all 55 counts against him, is about to be sentenced, about to know whether he faces life with or without the possibility of parole. You just saw the judge in this case, Judge Nicholas Prim, return to the bench. You're looking at the door where Colt Gray will be emerging at any moment, the defendant in this case, And there he is now, the young man who carried out that school shooting in September of 2024. We're taking a special report right now. Let's listen in.
We've just heard from inside the courtroom. Deputies are now lining the hallways. A reporter inside the courtroom, Gase King, saying that the courtroom is as full as they have ever seen. There are two options the judge has right now: life with parole or life without parole. Let's listen in.
To prison. And here, as everyone understands, the minimum sentence is life with parole. Now, the appellate courts have said that children are constitutionally different from adults for purposes of sentencing. That stems from an understanding that juveniles aren't fully formed cognitively. Hallmark features of a juvenile include immaturity, impulsivity, recklessness, the failure to appreciate risk and consequences. Because of these factors, the Supreme Court says that the Eighth Amendment prohibits the death penalty for juveniles. The Supreme Court also disfavors life without parole for juveniles, declaring it to be a constitutionally forbidden, disproportionate sentence in all but the rarest of cases. Life without parole is thus authorized only for youthful crimes reflecting permanent incorrigibility. Life without parole is barred for crimes that are born out of a transient immaturity of youth. Now, I recognize that with your guilty plea, you've assumed responsibility for your crimes. You have made a lengthy and public trial unnecessary. I also recognize that you were failed by each of your parents. You were failed by your extended family. To a certain extent, you've been failed by a society that can't stop propagating this misguided value in online cultures and social media, rather than making genuine interpersonal connections and relationships. But that failure does not absolve you from who you chose to idolize, worship, and become. 4 lives were stolen, 2 of them really just beginning, and it wasn't done out of fear or anger. You weren't being bullied at Appalachia. It wasn't done out of hatred. You didn't even know anyone at that school. It was done for the infamy of it. Now, your childhood instability and neglect would explain or mitigate finding yourself in one of those problematic places that Dr. Richards testified about. But planning, fantasizing about, visualizing, and executing a school shooting don't put you in a problematic place. It puts you in an unredeemable moral wasteland. Your crimes do reflect permanent incorrigibility, and I will sentence you to life without parole for each of the malice murders that you committed. You understood the horror of what you were going to do. You studied the trials of those other shooters. You even critiqued the victim statements given in those cases, and yet you did this anyway. You wrote, "I want to make history. I want people to remember the pain I caused." And there you succeeded. The pain that you visited upon this community is unlikely to disappear in my lifetime. You do not seem to be tormented by what you did. You seem to relish following in the footsteps of the murderers you idolize. You aren't racked with guilt. You're proud of yourself. Less than a month after the tragedy, you weren't concerned with the horror you wrought, but rather with finding out which mass murderers they were comparing you to. A youth may fail to consider the harm his rash actions inflict before acting, but you did consider it. You studied that pain when you researched the trials of your profane idols. You contemplated that pain over and over. This wasn't transient immaturity. It was deliberate, contemplated evil. You were all too aware of the court outcome of those mass shootings because you studied and obsessed over them. You know that the Aurora Theater shooter received life without parole. Nicholas Cruz received life without parole. Ethan Crumley, a juvenile, received life without parole. Yet you were not dissuaded. Your plan was not hastily hatched. It was a slow boil simmering more than a year's time. You savored the thought of it, you visualized it, and you fantasized about it. You broke it down step by step in visualizing what you were going to do. The thought of mimicking these other mass murders is what brought you joy. Now, for the rest of us, there is no joy here today. There's only a measure of closure. The slain will not return to life, the injured will not forget their wounds, and a 16-year-old boy will live and die in prison. You have certain post-plea appellate rights I need to inform you of. You have a right to file a notice for a discretionary appeal within 30 days of today's date. You can have a lawyer represent you for that, but you are not entitled to court-appointed counsel. You have a right to file a motion to withdraw this guilty plea because it's less than 30 days before the term of court ends. You have to file that within 30 days of today's date. That would be to correct a manifest injustice. You do have a right to a court-appointed attorney for that post-plea appellate right. If you need a court-appointed attorney, you need to promptly apply for one so that one can be appointed to meet that 30-day deadline. You also have a right to file a petition for habeas corpus to challenge any legal errors in the proceeding, any violations of your constitutional rights. That is a civil proceeding for which you do not have the right to court-appointed counsel. Each of the malice murders will be life without parole, concurrent to one another. The felony murders and the related aggravated assaults for those all merge as a matter of law. Each of the aggravated batteries will be 20 years to be served in confinement consecutive to the life without parole. The aggravated assaults and the cruelty to children that do not otherwise legally merge will be 20 years concurrent to the life without parole. Is there anything else I need to address?
20 years on the aggravated battery consecutively concurrent with each other.
Yes. All right. We're adjourned.